And I think you're muted.
There we go. That's better. All right. We'd like to welcome everyone to the May 12th Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law in section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for our records prior to taking any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask for you to keep your microphone on mute. Use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before speaking. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter via our website and email have been considered. We have also received email from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. We'd like to call the May 12th, 2022 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Bonezzi.
Here.
Mr. Brancatelli.
Present.
Mr. Kalickia.
Here.
Mr. Dreyer. Mr. Edmond. Director Wong.
Here.
Mr. Strickland. Mr. Tarasik.
Here.
Ms. Trott.
Here.
We're also joined today by Kevin Roberts from the Department of Law, and Carl Brunges is hosting the meeting. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. We'll begin today with our certificates of appropriateness. I would like to welcome the first applicant to open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project. The first project is the mural by Agostino. I'm not even going to actually try that last name because I am phonetically challenged this morning for Clark Fulton Public Arts Project.
Thank you. This is Susie Underwood from Metro West. So this is for a heat-applied vinyl mural that's going up on the old Masonic building on West 25th Street, just north of Denison Avenue, right next to the McDonald's and across from kind of the firehouse area. You can skip to the next slide. This is part of a larger project, which you've seen some, I think most of them haven't had to come to Landmarks, but some of you have seen the projects going along West 25th Street and Fulton Avenue and Sackett and Meyer kind of area. Go along, go ahead. You can go ahead. And so this is the building. It's getting fixed up as we speak. And this is a kind of a faraway shot of the south-facing wall that faces towards Denison. And then you can go, here's some of his fine art, give you context for his style, but I've got actually a finished rendering of the mural here, so you can keep going. I didn't have that before. Here's some of his other work. You can keep going. Just some more context shots because you guys asked for that last time. So you can kind of see where the wall is, see what's across the street there, looking north from that wall. And then this is kind of how it fits on it, although this is the old sketch because they decided not to put windows into it. So the final illustration does not include windows. So that will just make it easier, but it's kind of framed out on the building there. So there will be a little bit of the brick wall framing it out like so. And then you can go ahead. And that's the final design. So he just reworked it, same design, but without needing to fit around the windows. And we got some great feedback from the community on this design, from people that live in Brooklyn Center and our garden members. And so Augusto incorporated all that information into a bright, cheerful design for this. And then we'll be working with West Camp printers to install the design. And, you know, I'm working with them to make sure the wall is ready to go. And the vinyl design will adhere to the wall nicely for a long time. And that's it.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with feedback from the local design review committee.
Madam Chair, this went to the Near West Design Review Committee on April 27th, and it was approved as part of a packet of multiple public art murals throughout the Clark Fulton neighborhood.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We will now open the floor up to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off?
Madam Chair, before we begin, I'd just like to introduce Cara Petras, who's with us today. She is the city's public art coordinator, and I think it's a good time for her to weigh in on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I do support this mural. They did the things that were asked of them the last time they came before you, which was to frame out the mural with the building. And they've done that. I think it's a vibrant addition to the neighborhood. And based on the feedback from Near West Design Review, as well as you all's feedback when you saw this before in February, I think they've done those things, and I'm in support.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback from your perspective. We will now open the floor up to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Okay, well, I'll begin with my comments. Sorry, I have an allergy voice here, so sorry if I keep on coughing here. I think the revisions to the design do incorporate some of our feedback from last time, and I appreciate that it's been held back from the edges of the building, and I think it's a good addition to the neighborhood. Councilman?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Same comments. What a wonderful mural and a wonderful addition. And congratulations also to the developer who's making great strides in that project step forward. I know that was a complicated project and had a few fits and starts, but is now back on track. So great design, fully supportive.
Thank you for that feedback. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we are not supposed to comment on the artwork, but I think it's a beautiful mural. I think it's some very, very beautiful artwork. I still would have liked the monochromatic version better as shown in the mock-up, but I do think this is a very fine mural. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Director Hong? Oops.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chair. My unmute that's not working. I think it's a wonderful work. I appreciate the effort that's gone to ensuring that the mural fits the building, and I'm a huge proponent of public arts and cultural expression. So, yeah, I definitely recommend this moving forward.
Thank you for that feedback also. Other questions or comments from the commission? All right, would someone like to put forward a motion?
I was just going to say, I forgot to mention, we're also putting, we decided to put plaques on all the murals. So there will be an identifying plaque at like ground level so that people, can learn about the artist and the project a little bit.
Thank you for letting us know that. You described the material you're going to use for the plaque.
West Camp has done these nice metal plaques for us before that look really great. They're kind of engraved and really professional looking.
Excellent. That will be attached to the brick below the mural, you said?
Yes, probably much lower so that it's readable from pedestrians.
Sure. West Camp is aware of this, but we will just bring it up here to make sure it's adhered to, is to make sure that you're attaching that in the grout joints versus in the brick itself. So you're minimizing the damage to the brick.
Yep, they're great about that.
Mr. Tarasik. Oh, okay. If there's no further questions or comments, would someone like to put forward a motion?
I move, we approve, Madam Chair,
Thank you. As presented?
as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second Director Huang.
Thank you, Director Wong. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to thank everyone. This is Costa. I'm the developer.
Oh, hey, Costa.
I want to thank everyone for their wonderful comments. I heard someone say about how rough it was to get this project underway. And yes, it is underway. We have all of our permits. We're moving forward. I don't know if I want to apologize that we got the monochromatic to be a colorful thing. That was a request of mine. I think that the specific area of the neighborhood had some kind of a depressed feeling to it. So I specifically asked Susie to give me something very, very colorful and very, very cultured, so we can bring up the morale of the neighborhood. And I think the color and the size of this will have a great effect on the morale of the neighborhood. And I want to thank you all for voting for this.
It's we appreciate your comments and in speaking up. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
No.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6 votes to 1.
All right. Thank you. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next applicant, located on the Main Avenue Bridge at West 9th Street, Murals. Again, would the applicant like to announce yourself and please tell us about your project?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Ian Meadows, and I'm representing the Historic Warehouse District Development Corporation for the public art implementation here at the Main Avenue Murals. Next slide, please. So essentially, this mural implementation is building on a lot of exciting momentum in past projects that have been completed in this same area. So if you see right here at this intersection of West 9th Street and Main Avenue downtown, there are existing lake and city murals with corresponding arrows that point in the direction. This was just the first in a series of additional enhancements and improvements to this area. There are always plans to add additional murals. Currently, Lighthouse Park right on West 9th Street is under construction. So that'll provide a new public space, a new amenity and seating area for the neighborhood. And again, there is also a Main Avenue connection study. So all of these previous efforts combined are really building momentum to invest, to enhance, and really help place make this particular part of the warehouse district. Next slide, please. So the artists, we have Alan Giberson. He was the one who previously completed the city and lake murals and also had developed plans to implement several others, which I'll get into here shortly. And then additionally, we have Ryan Jenke, who was selected for a large Main Avenue mural as you go down the hill towards the flats. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that there is a community process to help select these artists. So with the Historic Warehouse District board and place committee and a team of stakeholders, multiple different artists were vetted. There was also a community process that involved an open house that brought residents and neighbors to sort of view the artist's work, to provide feedback and sort of what the artwork should be like, and just to vet the artist itself. And through this process, there were sort of three overarching themes that came through for Ryan's mural particularly, and these included ways to celebrate the district's history, architecture, and add new color to the district as well. So those are the three ideas going forward that were prevalent. Next slide, please. So to give a little context into where these murals are going, so this is right at the corner of West 9th and Main Avenue. The perspective of this photo is looking down the hill under the Main Avenue bridge that'll take you down to the Flats East Bank. So we have mural 1, which will say Lighthouse Park by Allen, matching the same font and style as the city and lake murals. The next one will be the River mural, again by Allen, with the same style. And then the third one along the Main Avenue wall down the hill will be a large mural reflecting the history, architecture, and color of the district by Ryan. Next slide. So here is a rendering of the first mural by Allen, which is the Lighthouse Park. Again, the colors, the fonts, the style of it match identically to the city and lake murals that are directly across the streets. And again, the Lighthouse Park new public space that I mentioned is just to the left of this site, hence the arrow pointing to it. So this is another way to help placemake and identify this area while adding some color and covering up a currently graffitied eyesore of a wall. Next slide. And as you turn the corner, this is along Main Avenue as you go down the hill. This is where the river mural will be. Again, sort of building upon the existing murals, and this will be the final piece to sort of complete this whole series. Again, to sort of help placemake, to wayfind, and just add a dynamic and visually interesting pedestrian experience to this wall. Next slide. And last, here is Ryan's large Main Avenue wall. So if you can see in the existing conditions, there is a brick wall towards the right-hand side, and the left-hand side is this giant concrete wall. So the mural itself would just be on the concrete. So to help put reference into it, the right-hand side of the mural would match up with where the concrete ends and where the brick begins. And the inspiration and design about this, again, reflecting the history, architecture, and adding color. Each of these graphic elements on the mural is reflective of a physical element within the district, whether it's a piece of a sign that exists on a building, whether it's a specific architectural detail, really these unique abstracted pieces that sort of make you think and try to wonder, where did this come from in the district, and really create this thought-provoking, visually interesting, colorful mural that helps liven up this wall and adds some new life and color. Next slide, please. And this slide helps further put it into context of a rendering of what this would look like on the wall itself. So as you can see, it would be very large, very dynamic, and really captivating for pedestrians and anybody walking along this hill to help spruce it up. So with all of these murals together, it would really help create a dynamic space, really help anchor this intersection, creating a gateway between the flats and the warehouse districts, and adding some vibrancy and visual interest to an area that currently doesn't have much. And again, it would really complete a lot of the ongoing momentum and efforts here. So that pretty much covers the presentation, and thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with feedback from the local design review committee.
This was before the historic downtown design review committee on May 4th. The comments were that they recommend the district consider the inclusion of an interpretive sign. And Tom Storinsky, who couldn't be here with us today, wanted to express his support for the mural.
Excellent, thank you. We'll now open the floor up to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Tarasik.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm a big fan and supporter of public art and murals like this. This is in my neighborhood, and I run up and down this hill into the flats all the time. I do appreciate the lake and the city sign that's there, and I think as one of the main corridors, if not the main corridor, going down into the flats from the city, something obviously was needed here, and I think this is a really vibrant and exciting, provides a very vibrant and exciting transition from the city down into the flats area. So I'm a big fan of this and very supportive of it. And I thank the applicant for their efforts here.
Thank you for that feedback, Mr. Tarasik. Before I continue with the commission, I'm going to jump back to Ms. Petrus. Would you like to make a few comments from your side?
Yes, I wanted to share that on the original mural task force, I was a part of that. We had narrowed it down to 7 different artists, 6 of whom were interviewed. The other 7th candidate did not respond. But as far as the context of the mural, I wanted to let the committee know that based on the grant that was received, the theme of the mural was supposed to be water, fluidity, natural resources. So just wanted to respond to Michelle's comment in the chat that that's the reason that there's more color in the mural. But I'm supportive of this project as well. It will be a huge graffiti deterrent. And as you all know, that wall has been plagued by graffiti over the years. And when there was a temporary public art, I think I forgot who the artist was. He was out of Akron, but there was a chalkboard at the top of the hill that had art on it, and it was not tagged at all. So I think with that in consideration, that this would be a graffiti deterrent as well as adding some vibrancy and light to what had been a dark and dull section of that area.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We'll move back to the commission and start with Mr. Bonazzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I'd start by echoing the comments of both Mr. Trosek and Ms. Petrus that this is a fantastic mural. I'm always in favor of very graphic things. My whole house is filled with very graphic minimalist art, so I'm extremely supportive of the artwork itself. I only have one tiny, like really nitpicky comment, and that's this. Carl, could you scroll back to where it says mural to river? Yeah, so and here and the whole mural on this face of the street, you basically held the mural at this datum of that kind of like concrete reveal, which I think helps to like define the line. And then if you scroll one more page up, but then when you turn the corner, this lighthouse one continues past that reveal. So my only comment would be that if you look at this in perspective, it might be really awkward to see the kind of like nice blue color jog up for that little piece, and that you just want to consider cutting it at the same datum line as when you turn the corner and go down the street. But other than that small little piece, yeah, so if you flip between the two, you can start to see where, in that like top right corner, you'd have a little like weird blue square. But outside of that, I'm extremely supportive of the murals, and I'm excited to see them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonazzi. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to see him addressing the need to deter the graffiti and just lighten up the space, make it a little more warm and welcoming. My concern with the design is it's overall a little on the busy side. It just seems like a patchwork, and there's not a lot unifying the design. You know, I'm not sure quite how to address that. I think there's probably several ways to do that, but that's my hesitation with this design. It just seems kind of busy. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Pettit?
Thank you. I just wanted to weigh in on Mr. Bonezzi's concern. There was a lot of discussion at the Design Review Committee about that the transition at the corner, and ultimately they decided that it should be resolved by staff. But they were very much aware that that could be an awkward transition there. But I think staff and the artists can work it out on site.
Thank you for that, updating us on that also. I will state my feedback right now. I'm in support of the murals. I think they're a great addition. I like the the simple graphics of wayfinding and in that very iconic manner here, and really letting people understand, the directions, because it is a confusing area to people that aren't familiar with how to get to the river. So I am in support of that. My only picky comment here is, should the river be shifted to the current, on the image that's currently up to the right, so that you're not getting obstructed by the structure of the bridge. And overall, I like the graphics of the second mural. Since this is really a circulation area, I don't mind the quilt aspect of this in graphic, and I think it's really going to be a great addition to the space. Giancarlo?
Yes, yeah, I mean, that bridge, that area actually is kind of dark and not very comfortable. So this adds some color and some direction, but I'm wondering, how will this be a deterrent to graffiti? It seems like that's an important point, but I'm curious, why wouldn't the graffiti people just continue doing graffiti over this? Why is that?
This is Tara Petrus. Typically, what we found is, whether it's utility boxes or walls, we've had several walls throughout the city. The applicants came to us to put murals on, and what we found is that the graffiti tagging stopped. There's only been, as far as I know, 2 instances of graffiti over the last several, I'm sorry, 3, over the last several years, where we've installed dozens of murals each year. So, and then they're also going to have anti-graffiti coating. So if there were an instance of a graffiti tag, there's a way to remove the graffiti without compromising the mural.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brancatelli?
Yes, thank you very much. I agree. If your comment, Chairperson, the centering the river between the steel pylons would be helpful, so it doesn't get obstructed. And I kind of like the busyness of the overall mural. And Giancarlo's point on graffiti, my experience has been, when you have something like this that is this busy, it's not a blank palette, so you tend to get less graffiti because you don't have that wide open palette that you can put stuff on that folks would actually see. We had a wall in a local park that had some really interesting designs on it that did not get graffiti because it didn't create that blank palette. So, and I think that Tara's point on the anti-graffiti that can get cleaned off is helpful. I did have a question around lighting. Are they doing additional lighting or changing some of the lighting down there?
At this time, I understand that there will not be lighting.
That's it. It's a little dark as you're going down that hill. So I know that they've added some power packs down there over the past couple of years. I just don't know how much more lighting or additional lighting might be needed.
I think the addition of lighting would be great. I don't know if it's a budgetary issue. Maybe Ian can speak more to that, but the discussion at the downtown, historic downtown design review, there was not going to be any lighting at this time.
Yes, that's correct. This is Ian. I'll jump in really quick. You know, primarily just because of budgets and funding, sort of with the grants and our own funding for this, there are no plans for lighting at this point. I do agree that, you know, it would be great to get some at some point eventually. So maybe down the road, that could be an additional project that hopefully could work out. Thank you.
We can put that on the director's list of requested capital projects.
Sure thing.
Thank you. I fully support it.
While I'm unmuted, I'll just say I'm fully supportive of the project.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Wong. Other questions or comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll put forward a motion to approve as presented.
Could I recommend that maybe with a consideration to relocate river so it's not obstructed by the column?
Yes, good. Yes. So let me do the motion again. I make a motion to approve with the recommendation that the river mural is moved so that the text is not obstructed by the pole.
I do have one question before you go to the commission for the vote. And where do they intend to locate the interpretive sign that was recommended?
Right, that is something that we'll still have to work out. Again, at this point, we don't have the budget or the funds necessarily to install that at this exact moment, but we definitely appreciate, you know, the comments and the suggestion of that, and we would look into it. After some further discussion about it, it would likely be somewhere on the wall, either, you know, right at the edge of the river mural and Brian's mural, or somewhere down along you know, the pedestrian level that wouldn't block the art. But, you know, we'll definitely have further discussions and can help figure that out.
If I could make a recommendation, if you do secure funding to add the interpretive plaque, I would put it, once the river is adjusted to the right, so it's not obstructed, I would recommend putting the plaque at the left of that. And also just make sure that Ryan Janke signs his mural discreetly somewhere with the year it was installed, just for archiving sake. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So we're in the middle of a motion, so I want to keep that going. So we have a motion with a condition. Mr. Tarasik?
Yes, with that motion on the floor, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Tarasik. Any further discussion? Beyond what we just had about the interpretive sign, I think that should be noted as a future element. It should, the location should come back to staff for review. Right.
Thank you, Madam. Do you need me to repeat the motion, or are we all set?
Don, are you good with the motion and the conditions?
I think it's a motion to approve with a recommendation to relocate the river sign so it's not obstructed by the bridge pier, and to come back to staff with the final location of the interpretive sign.
Yes, I would agree with that. Ms. Wong, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
All right. Mr. Tarasik, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
All right, excellent. Then it looks like any further discussion? Then we'll move back to you, Mr. Pettit. Could you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion to approve passes unanimously.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing your project move forward. Just one last question. What's the timeline for installation?
So installation, we're trying to honestly get done as soon as possible. We're just awaiting final confirmation from the city about the sidewalk obstruction permits. And as soon as we get that, we'll be ready to go, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing it move forward. With that, we will move on to our third applicant located at 1844 West 25th Street, garage door installation at Ohio City Burrito. We'd like to welcome the applicant to open your mic and tell us about your project. Are they present?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure I see the applicant in the participant list.
All right, shall we either table or move on? Which one, Don?
I would recommend moving on, and I will I'll send an email to the applicant just to make sure he's still attending today.
Okay, perfect. Earl, could you forward us past this presentation then? All right, we'll move on to our next applicant located at 4009 Clinton Avenue, addition.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Andrew Kojan. My wife, Bridget Murtha, she's on the line as well. We recently purchased the home at 4009 Clinton Avenue, and we were looking to add a master bedroom and closet on the back side of the home. If you want to go to that's the plot layout. This is the front of the home. We're not touching anything on the front or the sides. If you want to go to the next one. Here's just the plans here that show that we're adding on the back of the bottom left-hand corner there, adding a bedroom and a walk-in closet with a cantilever overhang. And this is the side profiles. You'll notice when we get to the next slide, there was a couple additions years and years ago to the home. The pitch line of the roof is very choppy. There's actually several different lines you can barely see in the middle picture there with the dotted lines there just depicting where those are at. We'll get a pretty good visual next. So this addition doesn't actually change the footprint of the home. We're just building above a flat roof, and it will really clean up the back end of the house as well. So this is the current state of the home. I was kind of describing where there's several different pitch lines. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one's in the back hidden. We would be building where that deck is now, and we'd just be bringing the original pitch line of the home from the late 1800s out all the way, so it's one continuous roof line, which will look nice. That's there's the original at the top there. So that will come out towards us as shown in David's drawings there a couple slides ago. And just side profile of the house. And I think that was all he had there. As far as materials on the back end, it was last week we met with Ohio City Incorporated, and the commission recommended, which we agree with, to go with, instead of vinyl on the back there, to match our neighbors, go with actually a hardy board product or something similar to that, to stay away from vinyl. So from a material standpoint, I wanted to comment on that. And then I'll open up to any questions. Thanks for your time.
Excellent. Before we move on to questions and comments, I'll just ask the initial ones so that it eliminates future ones here in the future. Your roofing material?
It's a dimensional asphalt shingle just to match the rest of the home.
Excellent. And your windows?
Windows is recommended to, depending on lead time, either aluminum, no vinyl, or either aluminum or fiberglass. So depending on lead times, we actually have a baby on the way later this year. So probably go with whatever's quicker.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that update.
Mm-hmm.
We will start then with feedback from the local design review committee. I think you did a good summary, but on Carl or Don, are there anything else to add? Or do we have a representative here?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nate Law from Ohio City Incorporated. Andrew stated the feedback perfectly, so he did my job for me. Thank you, Andrew. The hardy board material siding was preferred, and either aluminum clad or fiberglass windows, and this was approved unanimously. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We will then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Giancarlo?
Yes. Looks like I missed another snowstorm. So what's happening with that porch? I'm not quite sure.
The porch will actually go away. So if you go to the side profile, go back one or forward one. There you go. So here's your side profile, top left. That's above and the right is above the porch right there. So the porch will be gone. So we're essentially just building right above. There's a bathroom on the first floor there.
Do you have a rendering or a facade of without the porch then, with the new conditions?
The only thing we have is David's architectural in the center here, but essentially it's just flat across the back
Okay.
with the two windows, the three windows there, I should say.
Mhm.
And then it'll be the hardy board going across to match the rest of the home color.
Okay. And the facade materials will be matching the other part of the house?
Correct. Yep, same color, same trim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll state mine right now. I mean, I think this is a sensitive addition, trying to clean up some very interesting conditions you have, and I think it's a great, update to this house. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Brenner.
Yeah, no additional comment, just would move approval. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if you'd like to turn that into a formal motion, then we can continue forward.
Yes, I would like to formally move approval as presented.
I will second that.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next applicant, located at 3205 Archwood Avenue, window replacement and lead abatement. We welcome the applicant.
Hi,
State your
thank
name.
you.
There you
Sorry.
go. Go
Hi, my name is Anna Perlmutter. I'm here with my husband and partner, Scott Crayley. We are landlords in Cleveland. We operate, own and operate over 20 units of mostly affordable housing. We really focus our mission on affordability on the near west side. And we have a project here before you regarding a lead abatement project that we are needing to move forward with. I'm not sure if I have access to change. Thank you. We own and manage and renovate all of our properties. We focus on a high touch model with our tenants to build positive and strong relationships. And we really consider our mixed income model a social mission model that enables us to offer often subsidized affordable rentals across Cleveland's west side. The current project is at 3205 Archwood Avenue. This is in the Brooklyn Center Historic District. We have received a lead hazard order for the downstairs unit. A child in the house received an elevated lead level, which we found out about 2 years after the point when the EBL was actually detected. The city sent us a letter, and this delay, we understand, was due to partially the pandemic and various other difficulties in actually reaching the tenants. But as soon as we found out, we jumped into action and found a lead abatement, approved lead abatement contractor to provide us with a proposal. So we are actively working to address this issue through lead abatement, and the project at hand is proposing to do a full lead abatement, including a full residing, window replacement, and other abatement measures to make the house safe for children to live in. I'm going to pass this on over to my partner, Scott, to continue.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Scott Crayley. The lead hazard control order based on the lead risk assessment that was performed at the property is a standard protocol with the city when there's an EBL. Is first they have to establish jurisdiction at the property by connecting with the family of the poisoned child, which can often take some time, and in our case, due to resistance from the tenant who was concerned about the consequences of city intervention. And then due to the pandemic, took a very, very long time, which is deeply frustrating. But once we found out, we got a lead risk assessor out there. It is, a wood-sided house with wood frame windows, which, as is almost always the case in Cleveland, are all lead painted. There is some deterioration to the lead paint on the windows, which are particular concerns because that's a friction surface. The upshot of the risk assessment was that there are most of the exterior surfaces contain lead, and it's a long document that basically outlines what needs to be done to lift the control order. Our proposal here, the risk assessment technically only covers from, I think, like 10 feet down. And sort of misguided nuance of lead legislations that because it's the downstairs unit in which the EBL was received, none of the upstairs of the building, even though it's the same siding and same windows, is covered by the control order. Our proposal here would make this property safe for generations. Encapsulation of the wood siding with an approved vinyl and Tyvek wrap, as well as replacement of the lead painted wood windows with new vinyl replacement windows would basically eliminate these risks for the children that will be living in the property long term. Our estimate from a contractor, and again, this has to be done by an abatement contractor, as we have kind of limited options there. Our estimate was approximately $70,000 in December when we first connected with the Landmarks Commission. In that time, we've probably added at least $5,000 to the cost just because of the rapid inflation of prices and the dwindling supply of labor and contractors. But this was at the time that we reached out and were ready to start the project, was our estimated cost for the project.
So as you can see, the project is sandwiched in between two other properties. And the reason that we're showing you this image on the bottom right of this slide is that the house that's circled is the property in question. The house on one side is a single family, which is also lead painted, and we consider that also a hazard to the family that lives in the rental house that we own. And then on the other side is the brick building that you see, which the contractor that we are looking to contract this with actually did a window replacement on that brick building, a full window replacement, I think sometime in the last 5 to 10 years, which are vinyl windows, and we wanted to provide that as a reference point as well. he's very familiar with the neighborhood and with buildings of this type.
You can see here there's, we've had some conversations through the design review process about the architectural feature up here on the third floor attic. All of that stucco type material is lead painted. It would be it's not cost viable by any means to strip and restore that. And our proposal involves siding that with vinyl as well. I understand that that's not everyone's preference, but we are across this entire project very explicitly focused on the fact that our clients tend to come from an income bracket that is at or below Cleveland median income, which is $32,000 a year. So we are extremely cost sensitive so that we can be providing additional services to our tenants. We have a near ban on evictions for the last 6 years. We provide wraparound social services to stabilize people in their homes. These things are all very expensive, and while I would love to be able to, do it all as far as the preservation of this particular trim goes, it's really not within our budget. So you will see on the right, though, I'm sorry, go back one slide. We will preserve the cottage style windows on the first floor in this proposal. And again, this just shows the neighboring properties. Really kind of indicates the extent to which lead is a pretty extensive problem on Archwood. Going up and down the street, you can just point to the hazards left and right. I think this is a particularly dangerous street, in part because of the age of the properties, but also again pointing to the windows on the building just adjacent. There were an approved job with vinyl replacement windows. So we are requesting variance based on the preservation norms here. We are looking to use vinyl replacement windows on this project and vinyl. We fully understand that this is not the absolute preference of this committee, but we are just very committed to prioritizing the wellness and stability of our tenants and of the ability of low-income tenants to participate in the economic uplift that is happening in many parts of the West Side, which is increasingly threatened by rising prices. So at this juncture, we are able to preserve the cottage-style windows on the first floor. We additionally are able and willing to preserve the 3 round wood columns by stripping and stabilizing the paint on those, encapsulating that with new paint. And then aside from that, we hope to permanently abate these hazards with Tyvek and vinyl.
We've provided some images of other houses on Archwood in the historic district, which all have vinyl siding, and many of which have vinyl window replacements. You can skip ahead. Thank you. The image on the right is a project that we also did. Scott, you can go ahead and continue.
Yeah, this is a project we did in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood with a similar set of materials. As in this project, we would build out the window trim so as to sort of retain the character of that craftsman style exterior window trim, as you can see we did on this project. And this is an example of the work we've done in the past. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the presentation, a very thorough review of what you're doing. We're going to start with feedback from the local design review committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This went to the Near West Design Review Committee yesterday. They approved it with conditions. The four conditions were that the double hung fiberglass windows are required on the front facade. They prefer encapsulation with composite siding. They need to recreate the gable detail, and that they need to properly strip and repaint the porch columns.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. We'll open up the, before I open up the floor, Mr. Brunges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been working with the applicants. I think this has been since December. So I think we need to look at this. I think we support the safety of the citizens of the city and the lead abatement, and this is important. We support the use of the vinyl siding on the sides and the rear, and that the window framing be built out on top of that. I think the main contention has been with the front of the building. And we're looking at the Secretary of the Interior standards, and there were three that popped out that stood out that apply here. It's like the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. And then deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Since they brought this to our attention about all the vinyl windows and such, this particular historic district has a large problem with work being done illegally. And currently we have 6 violation notices out on Archwood alone for work, for vinyl windows, for vinyl siding, etc. So, and I started going through our records, and there are very few, if any, permits that have been pulled dating back to 2002 that were either reviewed by the Landmarks Commission or even pulled. So much of the work that is being quoted, and they don't know this, and that's fine. It's done outside of our purview or outside of our review. And that's why we have to take each case on a case-by-case basis, because we don't know how those other items came through. So we've been asking about maintaining the look of the front, and we understand that there are some issues there, but we would support what the local design review committee has put forward as the conditions. But we would support the vinyl on the sides and the rear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brunges. I appreciate that additional feedback. We will then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. And Mr. Brennan Catelli, would you like to ask your questions and or make comments?
Yeah, no, please, if I can, what were those conditions again from the local design review?
There were 4 conditions. The first is that double hung fiberglass windows are required on the front facade. Number 2, they prefer encapsulation with composite siding. 3, recreate the gable detail. 4, properly strip and repaint the porch columns.
And so if I can just clarify then, what was presented was to wrap the porch columns or seal the porch columns with the appropriate material. I think if I'm just correcting, is that paint with a sealing paint, a sealer paint?
I can speak to that. Within our proposal, we were proposing to, yes, retain the porch columns as is by stripping and cleaning them as appropriate and then repainting to abate the lead. Our proposal does not include the other items. We kind of ballparked those after the design review commission or design review board yesterday with the contractor, and we're looking at at least 10,000 on the composite siding, 6,500 on the gable detail. We've already priced out fiberglass as a window upgrade, and that's coming in something like 5,000.
Yeah.
We're at the far limit of what makes sense to spend on this property if we're intending to retain it as a reasonably affordable rental property. Anything beyond this is just not viable. So the options really here beyond that are to either move it into the flip category where it goes to some homeowner who wants to buy it for an exorbitant price, or to sell it to one of the many people who are making offers on a regular basis and let it go back underground as an affordable rental that's sort of deteriorating. So it's unfortunate. I would love to do all those things, but they're just really not within the scope of the sort of business model we're operating here.
Got it. And can we go back and look at what is being proposed for the detail of the gable?
Yeah, our proposal is to side that with vinyl.
And do we know? And Carl, do we know, is that gable an original design, or that looks like an altered design?
We don't have a historic photo currently. It's only been recently that the county archives have opened up, so we've not been able to make an appointment to go and pull photographs.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can't, it doesn't seem like that's an original design. It doesn't seem to fit with that area of along the Archwood area that is a sample, but I'm not sure. I guess back to Scott, one of the going with siding, building out the casing of the window so that you still have that dimensional feel around the window frames. Is that a consideration of what you're doing?
Yeah, that's fine. We could build them out as appropriate before wrapping them in aluminum coil, so as to sort of retain that protruded character. That's within the scope of what we're talking about, John.
Okay, and I know I've been knee deep in dealing with elevated lead levels, and when I was on the council side, and I will correct my name on the next meeting. I can't do it during the meeting though. There was a lot of money that was raised to help write down the cost of having to make these kind of remodel or make these kind of improvements. Help abate. Have you reached out and looked at getting additional dollars from the city for doing some of the abatement?
Absolutely. As the chair of the Lead Safe Advisory Board and as a team between me and Anna who are actually putting out proposals for how the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition should be steering the resources it's aggregating, we are knee deep in every element of lead repair and lead poisoning prevention in Cleveland. Unfortunately, one of the severe constraints of the existing ecosystem for grants and loans is the requirement of a collaborative approach with a tenant. There are income restrictions that severely restrict the ability of CHN to distribute funds, and in most cases, the maximum they can distribute for a unit is something like $5,400 anyway. There's loans that are available up to I think 16, but they're at 5.5% and rising, which is helpful to a point. But again, I just want to reiterate that, like, if you're looking at this property and we're trying to keep the rents in the $750 to $850 range for a 2-bedroom, which is even they're a stretch for a lot of Clevelanders at and below that $32,000 median income. Adding 70,000 just onto the outside of the property before dealing with some of the other 100-year deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed is really even with some small amount of grants is really just kind of like stretching the viability of the project.
Yeah, and it seems to have been, I mean, I hear that from landlords on a pretty regular basis that, being able to access the resources as a landlord and still keep affordable. The unintended consequence of that is rising rent costs in order to, if you're doing kind of historic preservation, that makes it a challenge. So, all right, I think I've clarified some of my questions. I'll move on, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would also just jump in very quickly to say that because this is an abatement job, because it is, a flagged EBL, not just a sort of, the biannual certification that all landlords are required to do, the kind of funds that are available for remediation of properties for lead hazards would not go very far to address the issue at hand. And this is a specific issue that we're trying to work with the city. And, we're prepared to pay a very considerable amount to actually get the house completely lead abated so that future generations aren't poisoned. The available funds are just, they're not really for that purpose, to be honest.
Thank you for that feedback. Keeping things moving along, other questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do want to acknowledge that lead hazards are a huge issue in the city, and the abatement must be tackled to keep kids safe. It looks like you're getting somewhere between $1,500 and $1,700 a month from these units. So, it looks like it's a pretty good income stream. I don't have any issues with the vinyl windows on the sides and the back. The front of the building, though, even if that half timber treatment at the top is not original, I suspect it might be original. It's probably been there for a very long time. And, I have to say, when I first bought my first house in the city of Cleveland, I specifically wanted to live on a historic street. It wasn't probably designated a historic district at the time, so that was quite a while ago. But, I moved to Franklin because I wanted to be on a street with those large homes with historic character. So I think maintaining the character of the street is very important. And unfortunately, this area doesn't really have a strong neighborhood group that is monitoring alterations to these properties. So people are getting by under the radar. But I don't think we should start a precedent here of allowing these details to be just cited over. I think we need to maintain a certain standard. Otherwise, why are we here? So I support abatement, but I think the local neighborhood recommendations are sound, and I am going to be consistent with those in my vote. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Respond to that, please.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I just want to quickly note that if we're projecting gross revenues before accounting for vacancy at about $1,600 a month, we're looking at maybe $200 a month is going out in water, sewer, and trash. $200 a month is going out in taxes. We're down to $1,200. We've currently got $300 a month in debt on the property as is. So at 900, and for $70,000 of improvement to the exterior, we're going to take that 900 down by another 700. So we're making $200 a month if we have no vacancy, no problems, and no maintenance at this property. Once this work is done and it's been made safe for the tenants. I hate to say it, but this is unfortunately a zero-sum game. We can't have it both ways. We can have safe, affordable properties, or we can have a historic street for homeowners who can afford to live there. And it's not my choice to make at this juncture. It's your choice to make. Where do our values lie as a city? And how do we want to allocate our resources? Because it's great for the folks who can get the mortgage and buy the house if they want to live on that historic street. I assure you that my tenants are not able to do that. And that you won't find another landlord who's going to wipe a property's books out for years to come in order to abate these sort of hazards.
I'd like to respond.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson. Let's keep it brief so we can keep the meeting.
I will keep it brief. The probably the property values on that street, I would say on that house would be a minimum of maybe 140,000. So, you know, I think we're within the range as far as our numbers on the value of the house. I think that's the issue when you buy on a historic street. You know, these things have to be accounted for. It's just, you know, part of having a historic property. There's value to the aesthetics as well, and I think that needs to be considered.
Thank you, Ms.
To be
Anderson.
clear, we're maintaining all of the aesthetic elements that have been requested. The siding has already been approved by the design review board, and we already are replacing the windows with cottage style windows as requested to maintain the aesthetic value. So really all we're talking about is the type of material being used, which does not change the aesthetics in this case.
Well, I'm referencing the half timber treatment at the top for sure.
Right. Great. Let's keep the meeting moving so that we can get additional feedback from the rest of the commission. Mr. Benazzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this is, I mean, I'm not going to repeat what my other commissioners said. I want to speak more to the architecture, which is that everything else has kind of been addressed to how to move forward with this problem. Siding is very, you know, despite the material changes of the qualities, I think from an aesthetic standpoint, it's easy to change that siding. I think the difficulty does come in this, how do you deal with this half timber part without recreating it in a more expensive way? I'm trying, I've been sitting here thinking in my like bag of architectural tricks, how to replace that top part with vinyl, because the truth is, like, yes, the white might be linear, like vinyl is linear, but how to replace that blue area, and to not have a proposed kind of deep, you know, like it's one thing to say like, oh, we're just going to resolve it, but I think to not have like, you know, a clear set plan for how to resolve at least that top part, which is primarily, I'd say, at least 40 to 50% of what makes the front of the facade architecturally important and relevant. The rest of the house, I think, I'm not going to speak for anyone, but I would say for myself, I don't have any problems with, you know, doing the types of replacements you're doing, especially when you weigh in the, you know, the underlying things that this house has issues going for it, and the kind of resolved damage that has kind of come as we're part of this house. But the top is the contentious part, and I think my issues lie in not having at least a proposal of how you would reclad that in a very inexpensive material. I think just the verbiage of saying like, oh, we're going to replace it isn't sort of concrete enough to give us as a commission or myself the confidence to say, I know the rest of the house is going to be fine, but I don't know how that top is going to come across. I think maybe if there was a proposal or like, you know, a detail like of a drawing of like an idea of how to at least tackle that top half timber section, to be like much more resounding and confident. So I'm gonna leave my comments as there as I keep thinking. I'm gonna let the rest of my commission members speak. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Benezzi. So I'll build on that a little bit. Ian, is this plaster hot? Like, I mean, it has the lead paint on it. Is that the true reason why this is being replaced? Meaning, is there things like asbestos in this plaster that you're concerned about beyond the paint that is on the plaster?
No, the only concern here is that it is, as the rest of the house is, lead painted, and that, especially given the porosity of the substrate there, is going to be prone to delamination for a long time to come, which is, you know, just going to inevitably fall onto that porch and potentially be tracked into the house, creating additional hazards.
Okay. You know, I'm grappling with the same thing Mr. Benezzi is, because we have a social side to this review along with the aesthetic side to maintain the character of the district. So you can see the quandary that we're in, because that is our duty here on this commission. I think this area, similar to the gable, is what I'm struggling with, because it does provide the character to this house that does make it stand out from the rest of the houses on the street. I wonder, have you explored removing the plaster rather than just going over it and replacing it with like a hardy board with battens to recreate this design element? Trying to give you a more economical approach than, you know, doing it with plaster like it is seen here, but you emulate the details that are part of this house?
One of the big challenges of using any sort of composite on a lead painted house that probably often goes unnoticed because, you know, they're either the contractor, the owner, or whoever's involved is not really noting that it's lead painted. But one of the big challenges is actually the demolition process. It's extremely difficult to remove wood siding, and I would imagine especially difficult to remove this sort of stucco without creating severe hazards for the people around it. It takes an elaborate system of tenting and personal protective equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And so the cost, again, would just be prohibitive. I really do appreciate the concerns here, and I do appreciate that there's a desire to figure this out. And, you know, if there was a desire to make it happen, I would be absolutely amenable to that. But at this juncture, it's just not on the table for us. The alternatives for us are we either move forward with the project as we're proposing, or we most likely, I think, you know, I think Michelle said it best. We stand to do much better for ourselves by selling this property to an investor than by actually fixing it and keeping it as a reasonably priced rental, which maybe is in the interest of this commission to sort of try a different owner who has a different set of priorities.
Well, that disappoints me, because I think what we're trying to do is get to a compromise that so you can achieve your goals and we can, you know, uphold our requirements here. And I could be swayed because of this, as Carl noted, you know, we have to look at each case for its individuality. And I think this one, you know, there's merit to what you're trying to do here, definitely, for the safety of your tenants and the area. But I guess I'm trying to get to a compromise so that, you know, we can meet the goals of this commission also. But if that's not something you're open to, then I think we'll just continue to move forward then. Other questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Brancatelli.
Thank you. Just maybe circling back on that cable again. Is there an option, Scott and Anna, to maybe look at doing an encapsulating paint as a first step while you do all the other work? And then if that does fail, as may occur, then come back and look at then saying, okay, that didn't work, and or if other funding comes available.
I suppose if we're going to do what are called interim controls at the top there and just essentially not address the hazard, if we're moving forward with the rest of the project as is, we could connect with our contractor and determine what that would cost. We won't be able to abate the hazard there, but as far as establishing interim controls, it may be comparable to a siding option to get a temporary fix there.
Yeah, painting is an acceptable practice for making lead safe. If it's tight and painted, it would pass the swipe tests.
Yeah, if that's the way we need to go, we will, we can work with that. My hesitance there is, again, with a porous material, you have just many options for delamination of this paint. As far as all of those pockets that are accumulating water and everything else, it's going to be functionally impossible to prepare the surface in a way that's durable long term. And being on the third floor, it's just kind of a perpetual maintenance project to prevent the poisoning of one of the occupants. But if that's the only path forward here, I guess we can accept that.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at some of the historic photos, the older photos of the house, and I have seen the wood trim seems to have deteriorated. It has been painted multiple times prior to your ownership, but so I can certainly respect the concern about just not being able to encapsulate just through a normal painting and sealing.
Yeah, if that's the only path forward here, as I said, we can work with that.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Brancatelli. Other questions or comments from the commission? Right, if not, would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Brancatelli?
Just to get the ball rolling here. I would move approval as presented with the condition on the gable to as a first as an interim measure to try and seal and paint the gable and keep it as shown, but do allow the window replacements.
All right, thank you for the motion with the one condition. Do we have a second?
I have a question. The windows on the front, are we going to allow the applicant to proceed with the vinyl, or are we going to adapt the local design review committee's suggestion?
The intent of my motion, Michelle, was for all the windows to be replaced with vinyl.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion on the table to move as approved, or I'm sorry, to approve as presented with the condition to maintain the existing gable design and repaint it for encapsulation. Do we have a second?
This is Jonathan. I would second it if we add just for the verbiage to maintain the local design review committees for conditions in addition to the top gable condition.
Which the 4 conditions, I didn't write them down, so I'm going to go from the top of my head to make sure that we're all clear. Is you're asking Mr. Brancatelli to add the condition of aluminum windows on the front of the house, hardy board on clap siding on the front of the house. They had the same condition as for the gable, and I apologize, I missed the 4th one.
The porch columns.
The porch columns, which I believe they've already addressed. Is that correct? Anna and Scott?
That's right. We've already addressed the columns.
Okay, so they've already addressed that one. So, Mr. Brancatelli, do you agree with adding those two conditions, or is your motion stand the way you stated it?
Yeah, right now my motion stands as presented.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Bonesi?
Yes, let me just think about it for a second.
Okay. Mr. Brunges, is something you'd like to interject before I ask for a second again?
Yeah, I just want to, it was for fiberglass windows on the front, not aluminum.
Thank you for that
It's a lower
clarification.
price point, and that was a consideration.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Usually I write them down, but I don't have any paper near me today. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? That is the third time asking for a second, so I believe the motion fails. Correct, Carl? Keeps me honest, make sure I'm doing it right. Would someone like to put a different motion on the table?
Madam Chair, can you repeat the two conditions from design review one more time?
In addition to Mr. Brancatelli's requesting to maintain the gable details and encapsulate with paint, their conditions were for fiberglass window replacements on the front of the house only. Vinyl would be approved for the rest of the house. And fiber cement siding on the front of the house only. Vinyl siding would be approved for the rest of the house.
Okay.
Carl, and Don, did I state that right?
Correct, yes.
Giancarlo.
Yeah, I think I would like those conditions, but does the owner have to approve them or just suggest that it's part of a motion?
The owner has stated their position on the three items, that they would be open to accepting the first condition, but they're currently not aligned with the other two. And then Scott, you can correct me if I misstated that.
That's correct. We are open to the requirement on the columns, as well as to Ms. Brancatelli's request to perform interim controls as appropriate on the third floor, to retain it as is, but with stabilized for the time being.
Mr. Brancatelli be willing to revise his motion?
Mr. Brancatelli's motion failed, so someone would need to put forward a different motion. And Mr. Brancatelli stated that his motion, he did not want to add those two to his motion.
Michelle, could you put a motion together since you seem to be the one that created all this?
Well, thanks a lot, Giancarlo.
My pleasure.
Okay, I move that we approve the project with the conditions that the half timber gable would be sealed with paint, and that the two additional or the other additional local design review committee proposals be implemented, which would be the fiberglass windows, hardy board siding, and the columns sealed with paint. I'm sorry, I'm not articulating that well, but I think I got the idea across.
So just to clarify your motion, your motion includes the conditions of maintaining the gable and encapsulating it with paint, and maintain the timber details encapsulated with paint. The window replacement can be vinyl with the condition that the front is fiberglass. The vinyl siding would be acceptable, but hardy board would be required on the front of the house only. Is that correct?
Correct, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion with 3 conditions. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
No.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
No.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 5-2.
All right, thank you. So the motion did pass, so those are the requirements to move forward with your renovation. Thank you for the presentation. Before we move on, Mr. Pettit, did you have something to add? Don?
Sorry, I'm muted. I apologize. The applicant for the third item has joined us. We tabled that item on March 10th. So we would need a motion to remove that item from the table.
All right. Do we have a motion to remove this from the table and to review it at this time?
I make such motion.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion is the item is removed from the table. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'd like to welcome the applicant. Please unmute your mic and announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Good morning. Jeff Pizzulli, Ohio City Burrito. Here to discuss our window at 1844 West 25th Street. So as you can see from the picture, we installed a window that had the ability to open. There was this just a single piece of glass in the space that you see where that large opening is. And during COVID, we needed to get ventilation in our space. So we installed a window that was the least intrusive, that matched the existing facade of the building, that matched the upper windows to the building, to the apartment above us. And basically just gave the window the ability to open. We didn't change anything about the window size, sill height, nothing like that. Nothing changed other than the fact that now the window can open. We did our best, like I said, to match the aluminum windows upstairs that you see there that, match pretty much identically to the window we put in, other than the paint color, which we're open to changing, if that would be more cohesive. So like I said, during the height of the pandemic, our place is 900 square feet. We can get really busy with a lot of bodies in there. We needed some natural ventilation. So we were trying to follow the CDC guidelines as well as the city recommendations during COVID. I know there's the same type of windows have been installed already on West 25th across the street at Town Hall. So we knew there was a past precedent that these types of windows were acceptable. I spoke to my landlord. I think last time we spoke, people were asking if that original just single, well, I guess double window pane that was there existing was original, but he told me actually that the storefront went through a renovation in 2004. So there was nothing original about that design, with just the piece of glass in there. We have a similar setup at our, well, we have the same windows at our Lakewood store that we opened 2.5 years ago that passed Lakewood's design review. Didn't have any issues there. It's a pretty common type of window. It's pretty popular kind of style window for commercial use for restaurants. I believe I did mention in the last meeting that we had the support of Councilman McCormick. I believe he's here in attendance and he could speak to that, but that's about it. Nothing's really changed since the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you for the update and presentation, or the repeat of the presentation. Before we go to feedback from people from the state, like Councilman McCormick, Mr. Brunges, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. Yes, this building did go through the storefront renovation program in 2004. And I have been working with the storefront renovation program staff. We have Mr. Daniel Musson with us today, who's going to give us some more context in a minute. This is not an original storefront, as noted. It is likely a third generation storefront. However, when buildings go through the storefront renovation program, they are required to meet the Secretary of Interior standards. So there's a look, a feel, and a way that this was supposed to fit in with the historic district. And again, as mentioned before, all projects are taken on a case-by-case basis. So we have to decide whether a roll-up garage door is appropriate for this location, even though it was approved at Town Hall. It may not be appropriate to this building in this context. But we can also, but we just don't want to say no, no, no. We want to actually try and come up with a solution that would help meet the CDC guidelines, that would help meet the needs of the owner. And we would look to other precedent on this street that is also there. And we considered looking at the Nana Wall, which probably would not be appropriate here. But then we also looked at what was recently done at the Friesen Sheely building and other buildings in, say, East 4th Street, and that's with the pivot windows and the glass lift windows. So I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Musson to have some discussions. He can give some background because he was involved in this back in 2004, 2005 as well.
Thank you, Carl. Dan Musson, Storefront Renovation Program. Back when this project first went through in 2004, I was actually working at Ohio City Near West as the Storefront Program Coordinator. And yeah, as it's been pointed out, this storefront is not original, but back then it was based on historic documentation and adherence to the Secretary of the Interior standards. So, you know, as far as our program is concerned, it's an appropriate storefront. The introduction of the rolling window / door doesn't feel appropriate. It doesn't seem to meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. Our program would support a pivot door, as Carl has sort of brought up. The applicant mentioned he is willing to change the paint color. I think there's an opportunity for a storefront renovation program project here with financial assistance in the form of a rebate. If we could go to a pivot window, change the color, potentially put in more historically appropriate doors, but it could be a fairly minimal project, and we could offer the applicant 50% rebate up to $50,000 if he's interested in having that discussion.
That's great feedback. Does the owner have any questions or comments to that before we move on?
Is there a picture what that would look like with the window closed?
I mean, it's in the lower right hand corner there. It's essentially,
okay.
It would look like a single sheet of glass.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair, staff would recommend, if after some discussion, that if the owner, since the Landmarks Commission is allowed to table an item twice per 161, would recommend tabling this again to say the 6 months that it's allowed for for Jeff and the storefront renovation program to get together and discuss this. And then if they do come to an agreement, they can come back and we can review this at a later time. But I think it deserves to have a little bit more discussion for a more appropriate intervention to this storefront. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback, because that's where my brain was going to. Would the owner be open to that? Is this something you would like to consider? If so, as Carl stated, we could table you again, which would require you to come back, but it would allow you time to digest what you just were presented and or have a conversation to see if it can be viable for you.
I could take some time to discuss it with my business partner as well as my landlord. You know, he would obviously have to be involved because he already approved the window that we currently have that we put in. So and that would have to go through him as well. And yeah, the financial part of it would be a big part of it. I'd have to see that, like, somewhere that has this kind of window and see if it's something I even like or would want. I'd have to take some time and research this window because that'd be a lot of work to start back from scratch.
Okay. We'll think about that for a second, and I might ask you for permission in a moment, but I don't want to overlook that we do have Councilman McCormick here. So we will, Councilman, would you like to say any words before we move forward?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate you having me on this morning. I come on this morning to speak in favor of the Ohio City Burritos current plan. This is a local, homegrown small business that took a chance on this neighborhood and has really been an incredible contributor to our community. They got slammed during the pandemic, not only at this location, but also they have a catering business. So, of course, when events dried up, that also impacted their business. This is the epitome of a small mom and pop business in the city of Cleveland. They responsibly installed this equipment to follow CDC and City of Cleveland Health Department guidelines on airflow. And, I believe did it in a very tasteful way. Madam Chair, this committee granted a very similar use a few doors down, as was noted earlier, for the town hall project. Again, a very similar use, and actually, quite frankly, much larger and much more present and visible on the street. Again, this is not only what I believe adds value to the project by allowing an indoor-outdoor space in the nice weather, but it is also, very much aligns with the direction that the City of Cleveland's Department of Public Health, the CDC, and other health and wellness regulations and recommendations for airflow. So again, we're talking about a small business owner who has invested in the City of Cleveland, took the responsible step and the recommended step from public health officials to increase airflow in his business at his own cost. And again, following a precedent and an approval of this committee, few doors down on this street in this same historic district, at another property that has a much larger, much more visible, much more impactful open garage door on their property. So I would ask that this committee approve this plan as it is in front of you. I have a very hard time thinking that this committee is going to ask this small business owner who's gone through 2 years of pandemic impacted business to expend a significant amount of money to redo this brand new door. I don't know how the city of Cleveland or any of its commissions or boards can ask a small business to do that after the past 2 years. So again, respectfully, I would ask that this committee approve this. I know that's not my call, but again, this committee approved a much larger, much more visible, much more impactful garage door, a few doors down in the exact same historic district. And again, we're talking about a small business who I believe has done a tasteful, uh, renovation to this storefront that follows and respects the City of Cleveland's Department of Public Health and the CDC's guidelines on airflow during a global pandemic. So, Madam Chair, again, those are my comments on this one. But again, I want to be very careful that the City of Cleveland is not asking the small business who has been tremendously economically impacted to spend thousands of more dollars on a aesthetic detail of a door that would serve the same purpose of opening to the street, but would have a different aesthetic look when these small businesses across the city of Cleveland have suffered so much already. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I was just updated because, I mean, I've been on this commission for, I don't actually even know, I think 6 years. And I don't remember seeing town hall, and I think Mr. Brunges just updated that those doors are actually not reviewed by the planning commission. Is that correct, Carl? So they were installed without.
No, town hall was
okay.
reviewed. This current one was installed without a permit.
Okay. And quite frankly, if this was reviewed by the owner of the building who was and is aware of the requirements of this district, I think they should have some accountability in this if they allowed this to happen without coming here, because that is a requirement of their building.
Madam Chair, if I may, and I agree with that, and I'm not saying that. I believe in respecting the process as well. I believe in respecting this commission. What I'm just asking is that this local small business, that we work with them moving forward and don't ask them for some large financial burden on a great locally owned business that has already had a really tough year. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. No, I appreciate the feedback, and it does. There's lots to think about today, especially with the opportunity for the storefront program. But I do think you need to involve your landlord and be part of this conversation, since he has and gave you permission without getting the permissions that he is required to do. My personal opinion. Other questions or comments, or I think I have to officially open up the floor to the commission and for questions or comments or direction how we would like to move this forward, if we agree with Carl's suggestion or if we would like to move to vote on it today. Who would like to comment from the commission? Mr. Trosick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it my understanding that if we were to table this, it would require the consent of the applicant? Is that correct?
Correct, which he did state earlier that he'd be open to, but we'd have to ask him again. Yes.
Okay. So would it be appropriate to revisit that at this point in time? That if the applicant is willing to table this to have further discussions, then we could vote on that. If not, then we could have further discussion on whether to proceed with the proposal as presented here.
Sure. Jeff, and I apologize, your last name isn't coming up in my screen. Would you like us to table on your application so that you have time to discuss this with your landlord and with the storefront program, or would you like to have us move forward with the vote?
You know what, can we go back to some of the pictures I had with the different renderings with some of the different colors I provided to match the rest of the building? Okay. Yeah, okay, so I provided two. So on the left is the, storefront as is right now today. And then, the middle and right are what it could look like, if we wanted to make everything one cohesive thing. I'll be honest, I just don't see really any difference between the window you guys just kind of gave as another option. And if we were to do something like this, I mean, the storefront, in my mind, and I got to think anyone else's mind, I mean, that's about as cohesive as you're going to get in the middle and right. I mean, those windows match the exact windows up top and the apartments up top. So, I mean, that's about as cohesive as a building is going to get. I don't see what we're going to get out of, trying to reinvent this whole thing, rip this window out of there, get this new one in there that's a big piece of glass. It seems just like a lot of unnecessary work for one, maybe one person's aesthetics, or maybe they're mad because, the proper channels weren't filled out and this is some kind of punishment. But I mean, frankly, nobody walking down the street is going to think that's, not a good look, or that's somehow not the right look for that building. I mean, that's just in my opinion, that's just not possible. I mean, that looks as good as you're going to get. So I don't see what we're going to get out of doing this whole thing with this new window. Such little gain, if any, for a lot of, work, money, time, people's time, effort. We've been here 14 years. When we moved into this space, our entire block was vacant from Jada Bridge. So we've been here since 2009. There's nothing we would ever do that we didn't think had the best interests of the neighborhood. We're involved with pretty much every nonprofit, not just in Ohio City, but in Cleveland. I mean, there's nothing we wouldn't do unless we thought it was a true value add to our building, our space, our street, our community. We're very involved in our neighborhood. So I just wanted to get that out there. I think it's really important for you guys to know where we were coming from when we didn't do this half-cocked or willy-nilly. We don't everything we do is with the best interest of our community. So I want everyone here to know that, that's what we were, in trying to keep, everybody safe and everything during the pandemic. We also try to do it in the most tasteful, respectful manner that we thought would add value to the building, to the storefront, to the community. There's nothing, we didn't just make this decision lightheartedly. So I'd like everyone here to know that before, on a whim, people just want us to go down, start back from scratch and just get a whole new window, and all like it's that easy. Just to really think about that, maybe we should just go to a vote. Because this has been going on for a long time. It seems like every time we talk, we table it. I really don't see what we'd be gaining between the two windows, the one proposed and the one that's in there.
Okay.
And you know what? Actually, my business partner is actually coming in now. If I could have a minute, maybe I could fill them in with what we've done so far in the meeting.
Sure, absolutely. If you need a minute, we will, if we can take a 60-second break, and then we'll reconvene here in a moment.
Can I ask for a point of clarification, please?
Yes, Giancarlo?
So we have, it seems, two issues here. One is aesthetic, and the other one is the client wants the window to be openable. Is that correct?
Well, I think the replacement of the window with the overhead glass door is the item in question here.
Yeah.
Since it was installed without the review of this board or permit. So we're trying to move it forward, and the applicant has put on the table the opportunity to change the colors of the elements on the building to help get acceptance of the door. Does that clarify?
I think so. I mean, if it were a single pane, which is what seems to be desired, how would it open? It would not be able to open, correct?
I think the storefront program presented an option for a pivot door window. It's a door, but can look like a window, similar to the existing window or the previous window, I should say. But it does provide the ability for it to open.
And it would open into the street or toward inside?
It would open both ways. It would pivot at either 1/3 or half point typically.
And then fold back right against the wall, so it would not be sticking out into the
It
side.
would project out like an awning on both sides of the opening.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
So Jeff, do you still need a minute, or would you like us to?
Yeah, but I do have a question. So that's a very small patio, and actually a table goes right up against that sill on the outside. I'm not sure how that window opens, but does that thing project out while it's opening? Is that possible? It would be like hitting people?
I think that would be something you'd have to coordinate when you are opening the window. That yes, potentially as it pivoted, it does need some clearance to pivot, but once it's up, it would not hit anyone at the table.
I wonder why that one's preferable to the current one, and like why just if we're still able to change it to like a similar window that also opens like we'd have to go backwards in time and take something out that's installed and incur additional costs. And essentially, I don't think it looks that much different or in with whatever style they're trying to keep.
Right. Is there another picture of that window? Am I seeing that actually does have, can I see another picture of that
I'm just
proposed?
concerned about the panels.
Right, actually, so it has. So that window actually isn't one solid piece. That has some kind of post in the middle.
I think it's that you having experience with this product. I'm just going to fill in for Carl here. That you have the design option to have, depending on the size of the door, to have it as a single pane or to provide some detailing similar to what you see in the images on the right to match adjacent glass fenestration detail. So I'm sure in these cases they were matching maybe the fixed windows on the lower bottom to what is adjacent to the right of that image where you see the door opening and so forth. So it's not a requirement well, it's only a requirement based on the size of doors that you would go after.
Okay, so is that what, I mean, so what is the board saying, that if we went with that kind of window, they'd want it as a single pane? It's weird because like the windows above us, those aren't all one big single pane. I mean, is that what we're talking about here? Like the whole issue is because the one has some panels and it actually matches the upstairs windows better, but you want this one to be one big single pane? Is that like the big hang up?
I think the issues that the commission discussed last time is that, as was stated by the storefront program, this did go through the storefront previously, and what was installed was matching the original details of the building when it was constructed. So those are the historical configuration of the storefront. So that is the preference was the discussion last meeting. We actually haven't gotten to the discussion yet by the commission yet, but we could open up the floor if you'd like us to make a vote, or if you need more clarification, we can open up the floor to the commission.
Well, also, yeah, going along with that, is it my understanding that if they goes through like a storefront renovation, that really only has to stand by those kind of guidelines or whatever. I believe there's only like a 10-year, that was done in 2004, and there's only a 10-year kind of window on that, I guess, if you will. So we're kind of outside of that anyways.
I think they've offered you Carl, what was basically to redo this since you're outside the window, and you could apply again for the storefront grant to help up to 50% on the door. So the question is, would you like some time to think about this, and would you like us to table so you can have conversation with your partner and or your building owner and the storefront program, or would you like us to move to a vote and we'll open up the table or open up the floor to the commission for questions and then ultimately a vote?
I see Councilman McCormick. Does he have his hand up again?
I would just,
Did you
if I could just make one last comment, I would just say I appreciate that, and thank you all again for allowing me. I struggle too with this idea that we would use additional city resources, understanding the tremendous need across the city to fix something that ain't broke. So that's the other thing that I would just want to mention, that as a side of government that has to pay the bills, from a policy perspective, using precious storefront dollars to fix something that isn't broken, my opinion, that's kind of tough for me to stomach. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. One thing that I haven't stated while you're clarifying that is that your anchor in this area has not gone unnoticed within the community and in the neighborhood at large. So I mean, you are an asset to the neighborhood, and we're trying to similarly come to an agreement or a compromise, since this was done without our review and it's after the fact. Like, these are the comments we would have discussed originally before the installation occurred. So I'm sorry. And Jeff, did you have feedback for us of how you'd like us to move forward?
Okay, I understand. I understand all that. I think, what I originally stated and what the councilman was trying to convey is just that the reason why it was done, possibly like rushed, as you say, or didn't follow every step to the letter, is because of COVID. We were trying to get open, and our space is 900 square feet. During lunch, we can get a lot of bodies in there. So we were trying to keep our staff safe, keep our customers safe, follow all the guidelines, get the proper airflow and ventilation that would allow us to be open to the public again. So with that being said, and we spent over $10,000 on this window. We kept everything the same. We didn't change the window opening. We didn't change the sill height. It's the same exact window. All we did was give the window the ability to open. That's, at the end of the day, that's all we did. So I think, with all of that being said, that's what we're asking, kind of throwing ourselves at the mercy of this board and saying, we understand everything that you're saying. We humbly ask for an exception be made in this case due to those circumstances that, have been mentioned.
Sure. No, thanks for that feedback. Okay, so it sounds like you'd like us to continue moving forward and not table at this point. So I'm going to open up the floor for continued conversation by the commission. Mr. Bonezzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the first thing that, this happened in the last one and in the last applicant and this current applicant, which is this board's purpose is fundamentally to uphold architectural integrity, and it's about architecture first and foremost, I would say, and there's a reason that we have this board for the review of architecture. In terms of what's happening here, I would agree. There's like two issues. One is the political aspect of this window, and then the other is the actual architectural details of changing the window, and then also the facade color. If I had to find like the best middle ground amongst all of this, it would be to move forward with like the single large square window. And I know we'd have to find ways to like allocate funds for that through the storefront system, but I think because it would at least get us closer and back to the original architectural intent of the building. And same goes if the original had that kind of grayish storefront system, you know, it was reconsidering the coloring of the front of the storefront, particularly because of just how much emphasis it brings down into the entryway of the building instead of kind of cohesively the whole elevation. I don't know. I'll leave my comments at that. I would say that for me, the best compromise would be, you know, I'd say primarily the best one would be to work with this with the local storefront and to try to get that square window implemented. That and then reconsider the paint colors. That would be like the primarily like the best case scenario compromise. And then the second level below that compromise would be to accept the current window that's in there, but I would say at the very minimum, reconsider the color of the lower elevation to unify the facade. So those are like my two options for consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bonazzi. Mr. Tarasic?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bonazzi, if I understand your second option correctly, it would be to, and I'm not suggesting that this is your position. I'm just trying to understand your second option. It would be to accept the window as it is there now, but with a change to the color of the pane.
Yes, and I always trip over my words, so that's my own fault. I think that reconsidering the color of the bottom of this building would subdue the building in a way that, you know, despite the like altered status of the window condition, that it would not be as prominent anymore because you make an additional change. It kind of counteracts that change, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think right now, because it is quite literally a yellow recessed box, that there's so much attention brought to that storefront. I think minimizing the attention to the storefront can also minimize the alterations that were made to the storefront. So that's like the lowest of the like compromises, I think. I think that's the most economical compromise for everyone involved. I know a lot of us could argue about that window, but at the end of the day, if we make the storefront more subdued, it'd be less noticeable.
And I would agree with that. And I'm looking at the three pictures here. To my mind's eye, what that suggestion would perhaps be the one on the far right.
Correct.
You know, I've made this comment many times, and we've seen this many times before in front of this commission, that there are many applicants that come here before the commission after the fact. Sort of, it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. And those are issues that we struggle with here, and we've talked about a number of times. I see a difference with this one, however, and I think it's specifically because of the pandemic and specifically because of all of the extenuating circumstances that were going on at that time, with the struggles with businesses, with the struggles to comply with state and with city health orders and mandates. And with this applicant doing at the time, I think what needed to be done to comply with all of that, as well as keep the business open. I do appreciate the Secretary of Interior standards. I truly do. But I think that we should also consider here the extenuating circumstances where I don't necessarily see this as specifically one of those applicants that are coming to us after the fact for approval once something has been done without this board's permission. I think we should take into consideration the extenuating circumstances that had happened during COVID, during the business climate, the health climate at that time, and really take that into serious consideration as we move forward here and whether to approve or not. I struggle with that part of it because I really do empathize and understand the issues here with that. Again, I'm not putting words in Mr. Bonazzi's mouth, But if a compromise were to be the third picture of the one that's on here, with keeping the window the way it is, but softening, if you will, the impression that it gives from the street and from the outside, then I think that should be something that the commission consider as a potential compromise here.
Thank you, Mr. Trosick. One point before I continue on, Carl, do we have feedback of which was the original colors from the building, and were the blue colors for the upper windows what was installed in the storefront renovation program based on historic photos?
I believe Mr. Musson could probably answer that better than I can.
To the chair, yeah, the windows on the second floor were designed and installed as part of the 2004 program. The color, the blue color was just meant to tie in with the overall scheme of the building, with the gray and blue on the first floor, and the blue windows, mimicking that blue color on the second floor. The style is just based on the period of the building. It's not, we don't have any hard evidence that that's the window that was there originally. It's just an appropriate window type for that era of building.
There's no historic documentation to that blue. It was just a style preference at that time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I think just to build on what Mr. Trosick was saying, COVID did put everyone in a very interesting circumstance because of having to comply with so many requirements and the difficulty to get permitting, through the city quickly at that time due to the state of the world. So I think this is an interesting situation that we have to review on its own merit based on the situation, and individually review it on its own merit versus being able to be strict with our requirements. So I think a compromise may be needed on this one because this was beyond the circumstance of a typical process when this was installed. So those are some of my comments and things I'm considering right now. Giancarlo, your questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Mr. Tarasick's wise comments, and I also like Mr. Bonazzi's option number 2. And I agree with you, Madam Chair, that we should come to a conclusion to this project today. So I think the color may be a factor that we should consider at this point and move forward rapidly.
Do you agree with Mr. Tarasick's recommendation that his preference of option 3 and what was on the?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you. I support the desire to have fresh air coming into the space. On a day like today, you definitely want the windows open. I think COVID, although it was an awful thing, it really brought the idea of fresh air as something very important, and that's something that we really have not embraced enough. I think we do need the fresh air. I support Mr. Bonazzi's comments. I want to point out that there are 2 windows in the front. You have the transom window and the large window below. If this had come before us originally, of course, we probably would have all had the preference for the single window that tilts. But I could probably support what's there with the modification of the colors, like in proposal number 3. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
One more comment. Can I make it quickly? Hello?
Go ahead.
Would we be able to, as part of our motion, include, should this garage door window ever have to be replaced, that it would come before us and, we could revisit this and possibly have the single pane installed?
I think we can discuss that during our, when we get to motion as a condition. Mr. Brancatelli?
You're muted, sir.
I just felt like Mike Polensek. Yeah, it would have to come before us anyway if there's a change from that garage door, if it had to be replaced. And I agree. With Councilman McCormick, it was a challenging time during a pandemic and having to be able to adapt. And for someone who's pulled permits before during the pandemic, it was a real challenge to get some of these done in a timely fashion and also meet the health standards that we needed for these small businesses. Just to circle back a little bit on the business itself, very familiar with it. It had received some funding from the city when I was on council, and it was just a great project in that area when there wasn't a whole lot going on down there. I look at upgrading the painting and going through those changes as a positive, and understanding the circumstances that we went through. If we were introducing an element that had not already been on the street, like at Town Hall, and this was a significant change from what's there, and a big departure, I might have more concern. But considering that that element had been approved by this body previously, I think going with the paint changes and that what was recommended earlier seems to be a positive direction. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brancatelli. Giancarlo?
Yeah, I think we should proceed with the color considerations at this point. Could I see the rendering of the current colors? What's going on there right now? I think that's the one on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And we were possibly discussing the idea of going back to the original colors, which is a light grayish blue. Or are we talking about some other colors at this point?
I think with Mr. Bonezzi and Mr. Trosick, we're making the recommendation of the one on the right.
The color on the right. Okay.
I don't know, Mr. Trosick or Mr. Bonezzi, do you want to clarify that?
Yes, Madam Chair. As far as I'm concerned, my recommendation would be, and when the time comes, I'd like to put forth the motion, but my recommendation would be to accept this as presented with the consideration of the color scheme that is on the right-hand side of the screenshot that's up on our screens now.
And I would also agree with that.
Well, that sounds like a time for a motion, unless there's, Giancarlo, you had additional questions or comments?
No, I'm fine and I'm ready to hear a motion.
Okay. Mr. Trosick, would you like to state that, is that your formal motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. So I'd like to put forth a motion that we accept this and approve this as presented, with the one stipulation that with the proposed, and I'll just say to here, the proposed brown upper window frames to match windows on lower level, gray wood facade and gray doors, which is the third picture on the rendering that is presented here, also be approved.
Thank you for that motion. Mr. Bonezzi, you seem to support that. Would you like to second?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you for the motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Brancatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Right. Well, thank you for your patience in this process. We hope as you continue to move forward, please come to us earlier than later if you're going to do any modifications, because we do want to collaborate with you to get the best results for both of us. And thank you for everything you've done for the community.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our concept plan reviews. We'll begin with the review of Bridgeworks at 2429 West Superior Viaduct, revised plans for new construction. Oops, is that correct? Carl?
Correct. And you also have proposed demolition of the, as
Oh,
well. This is all tied
thank
together.
you. Perfect. Yeah, proposed demolition. We'd like to welcome the applicant. Please open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Hi, this is Marika Shuidi-Clark from Ownership. I just wanted to introduce Jonathan Evans from Mass Design Group, who's going to be leading the presentation.
Thanks, Marika. Excited to be here. Thanks for having us here. I'm excited to present to you where we are with the Bridgeworks project. We've taken some time to evolve the design, and excited to kind of show you where we are now. Go to the next slide. Just as a reminder, kind of where we are at the corner of 25th and Detroit. Really exciting opportunity to make kind of an iconic moment here at this key intersection at the edge of the Ohio City neighborhood. And in some ways build off of some historic assets that we'll talk about with the 1939 ticket booth, as well as potential connections to the streetcar underbridge level of the bridge. Next slide. And just kind of where we are in terms of overall height. Again, really the opportunity to make something of a significant scale to anchor this place. Next. And so what you see here is kind of the massing that was last presented to all. And again, as we've taken some time to evolve the design, we wanted to look at ways that we can refine this, streamline the building and the project altogether, providing a little bit more space on the site for these program pieces to breathe. You know, you can sort of see things felt a little bit crowded overall, and you can see in that red dashed area, that's kind of the key moment of the site that we've really tried to reconsider and evolve how this building, this complex kind of meets the ground. Next slide. So this is kind of showing where we are now. You can see a much simpler, refined massing instead of having what was previously kind of a box on a box. We've tried to streamline the architectural expression of the residential and hotel portions, move the parking garage to the easternmost side of the site, still trying to celebrate and create and foster ways to move through the site and then through to the potential connections to the streetcar level of the bridge. Really, again, looking to see how we can open up access to the site through this evolution of the design. Next slide. Again, so this is a similar bird's eye massing view from the opposite end, looking at the northern face of the project. Here you can see how the tower steps back at the restaurant level and having that sort of moment there for outdoor dining. It's a hotel that's a drop off and it's a little building.
Mr. Evans, your mic is breaking up. You might want to try turning off your video, and it might help you.
Building and a parking garage. Okay, sure. Sorry about that. Is this better?
You're coming through clear now. Yeah, that is better.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this is the existing site plan, just to sort of acknowledge the buildings on the site. What you see in the dashed red line is the building that will be demolished, that we're intending to demolish, excuse me, and then the off to the left there, the historic 1939 ticket booth building that we want to restore as part of this project. Next slide.
Hey, Jonathan. Well, while we're on that side, this is Steve at LDA. Just to point out for the commission, we previously were approved to demolish the 1970s half of the building. So today the ask is to include the rest of that garage building.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for that clarification. Yeah, the dash building that you see there now, it's two buildings together, and yeah, we're looking to remove the whole thing. What you see here, this is the 1939 ticket booth building, a great asset with great bones that we were invested in, again, restoring and celebrating as part of this this project. Next slide, please. Again, just for context, an aerial view, sort of seeing what will remain and be showcased versus what will be demolished as part of this process.
And then you can also see in the design as we go through it that we're maintaining that diagonal path that would have, historically been the Superior Viaduct.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's we'll see that more on the site plan. That becomes kind of an anchor of how we move through the project. And again, as I kind of started to allude to with the previous image, instead of kind of a box on box of two heavy masses, we're excited by this window. Again, it still gets us the iconic presence for the site as to make a place here. And what you can see also is the new construction, this sort of mass that's behind the ticket booth, that's bringing in some of the cast stone to pay homage to the history of the site. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But really trying to invest at the human scale down low, which we'll see in the renderings, with making a place and trying to tie to the lineage of the site. Next slide. And this is, again, a rendering from the reverse angle. Again, you can see that the deck at the restaurant level, the same idea around kind of creating welcoming public space all around all sides of the building. I think this is a unique site that doesn't really have a back. So we're really trying to acknowledge that and create a site that's very, very porous. Next slide. Again, so this site plan shows how it all comes together. To Steve's point, again, we have the diagonal of the old Viaduct Street, trying to anchor that as a way to sort of structure movement through the site. So that becomes a pedestrian way that brings you through the front Western Plaza, through the lobby, which is intended to be open and publicly accessible, and then through the site to the east. Again, retail spaces really defining the public realm at the ground floor there. And also at the southern end of the site, really trying to create access through the site to the underbridge in a very welcoming, pedestrian-oriented manner. Quickly, again, so this kind of acknowledges what I was just talking about in terms of how we're moving through the site, making it porous from all approaches to bring people in to make a place here. Next slide. Vehicular circulation is streamlined. Again, we have the hotel drop-off at the porte cochere there off the viaduct, and then access to spots along that street, and then the garage all the way at the eastern edge. And then next slide. Just with regards to servicing these buildings, again, the site doesn't really have it back, but we've been very intentional and thoughtful about trying to screen and create a clear way in and out for that servicing to happen without compromising the integrity of the place we're trying to make. Next slide. So zooming in a little bit more here, next slide, you can see how this, some of our ideas around this place, this plaza between the tower and the garage. Next slide. And again, starting to evoke some of the character of the kind of place we're trying to make, and really creating an opportunity to create a threshold to frame the entrance to this underbridge level at the streetcar. Understanding that there's a exciting potential for that to be a civic asset for the city, and really wanting to make a place that gets you there in a very nice way. Next slide. Again, we're ever mindful of the place that we are making and the connections to the past, and how we can create a building here that, again, acknowledges and celebrates what's unique and special about the site as we plan its future. So what you're seeing here are some of the inspiration images that are unique to this particular site and the opportunity at hand. And
I
again, the
just
idea.
wanted to weigh in for a second to say that from our perspective, on the ownership team, you know, the access and the adjacency to the actual bridge itself was a hugely important factor behind why we were interested in this site in the first place. And so we are quite committed to making sure that kind of the public experience of being able to see and experience the bridge up close, and also to you know, provide access if and when in the future the lower level of this bridge does end up being able to be accessed by the public, as it has been kind of off and on over the years. And I think that, you know, this bridge, I think we can all agree, is really one of the iconic features of downtown Cleveland. And one of the pictures of Cleveland that you see all over the airport and kind of across media about the city. And so I just wanted to make sure that's clear, that we love the bridge, we love the aesthetics of it, we are committed to, you know, doing everything that we can to make sure that that just kind of the pedestrian experience of the bridge itself is kind of as vibrant and successful as possible.
Yeah, thank you for that, Marika. Again, that really kind of underscored and was the foundation of how we approach our site design, is really just how do these pieces all celebrate and create and foster access and a connection to that bridge. So yeah, no, thank you for talking that. And so looking specifically at the garage building, you know, what we wanted to sort of understand here, again, this is the building that for constructability reasons, we are looking to demolish. And you can see here both the inside and the outside. The interior is it's a garage. It's an unremarkable building. The outside definitely has some historic character. Looking specifically at the highlighted image there, that facade facing the bridge. If you go to the next slide. So again, one of the things that we're looking to really do as part of this new construction is find ways to kind of pay homage to this and the character that it has as part of this new design. So next slide. You can see we're really trying to take cues from the form of this and how to, in some ways, make this again, take some of the bones of this and have that be an inspiration for the design of how the tower meets the grade. So next slide here. Again, this shows how the place that we're making, and again, you can see how we're translating some of those forms, of the cast stone into this piece here of the cafe that again really grounds this tower and creates a place again that acknowledges the historic textures that we are intending to celebrate here. And you can see kind of going left to right towards the back there, where that tree is. That's kind of how you get through the site to the underbridge. So we're really just making a space here to sort of be and to sort of move through to kind of connect to that amazing icon. And again, being very mindful about the scale and the texture and the dimensions, such that it really evokes and is consistent with what's there now. I think what's exciting too is that we're making a place out of this. Previously, this wall was up against the highway, so something you kind of drove by, but we're really making this as a place to be and to sort of experience and engage with that at a human scale here.
And I think one of the positives about if you are able to approve the demolition of this garage component, is that we are able to pull back the building, as Jonathan said, from the bridge itself. I don't know if that was 100% clear, if everybody on the commission is familiar with this building, but the current building is pushed right up against the bridge. So there's really no way that anybody would be able to get up close to this building unless they are walking as a pedestrian down the right-hand side of the bridge itself. And you can see this very tall, kind of formidable fence that blocks the view of it from most angles. And it also essentially blocks the view of the bridge from the Detroit and 25th intersection. So, and we also have an easement that was, I guess the easement was put in after the building was constructed. But being able to pull this back and create this cafe plaza that we're showing here really, I think, will actually enhance the visibility of the bridge itself, which we believe to be really the most iconic part of this site. And you can see kind of in the left-hand corner there how we're really trying to look at this design as a way to sort of play off of the design as well of the ticket booth, which will remain, which is the wall that you see right on the left-hand side of that rendering.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. If you actually can go back 2 slides, like that'll show that image. I mean, one more. Yeah. So again, as it is now, this is something you largely blow past, right? So we're really making an opportunity to kind of slow down and really experience this sort of really exciting features of this architecture by pulling it back, letting that space be something you can actually create activity around to be a part of. I think we can go back ahead. And again, just acknowledging some of our historic precedents here. So again, this is a view from the other side of the site, looking off of Vermont Ave, the Viaduct Street side. So this is the drop off at that Torquay moment for the hotel. Again, just sort of seeing how the building makes a place, comes down here, looking at bringing in some elements of stone as well to just sort of evoke the sort of spirit of the place we're trying to make. Next slide. Again, so this is how that all works as a ground floor plan. Those renderings that you're looking at before were kind of taken from in between the ticket booth, looking at that cafe space. And then the opposite side there, that was the hotel lobby. But again, really trying to make the space feel publicly accessible all around. Just running through the plans below is largely back of house space, as well as some potential support space for the hotel. Typical residential floor plan above. So this shows how the residential floor kind of leads out to an amenity deck that's above that cafe space. And then moving up the building. Again, pretty standard residential building. And then the next level up is the restaurant level. Again, this is where we set the building back, create that very nice welcoming plaza. We like what that's doing for the massing of the building as well, to kind of create that setback at this level. And then past this above is the hotel. Next slide. And then, so this is the view of the building from the bridge. Again, I think we're excited to make a moment here, make a place that calls attention and brings people to the site and hopefully to the bridge. We like how we are relative to where we were in the past. Again, this is something that is much more refined, a little more elegant and lighter in terms of how it meets the sky, and then really investing in at the human scale down low, the high quality stonework and whatnot to make a place there that's evoking the past and paying homage to what was there. Next slide. Again, so this is a view from the opposite edge here. In some ways, we kind of like how the step back here kind of evokes the church next door. Each of the 4 sides of this building has a certain sort of unique moment to that. So it's not one monolithic form. It's crafted in a way that has a distinct presence on each elevation.
And one of the previous versions of this design had the tower pulled all the way forward to West 25th Street, whereas now you can see we do have a 1-story retail space that we're showing here with the restaurant sign as a placeholder. One of the reasons why we decided to pull this back was in order to give more visibility to St. Malachy Church, which some folks felt was being too overshadowed with the building so far forward on the street. So that's just one other area where we've made some pretty significant changes to the design to incorporate neighborhood and community feedback.
No, that's a great point. And that shows up really well in the next slide as well. Again, this is the view from the opposite corner. And again, stepping the building back to give more visibility there as well.
It's probably also a good point to mention that we did also reduce the overall height of the building. So we went from 186 feet to 162. So it was a pretty significant reduction.
Oh, yes, thank you. That's a great point. And just from a materiality standpoint, I think we're excited by the window wall system, looking at this as an assemblage of again, aluminum panels, clear glass, spandrel glass, creating kind of a tapestry there that again will catch light in very unique different ways. And then again, the cast stone down below at the ticket booth level and the cafe. Next slide, this shows just some precedents of that materiality and the kind of textures we're trying to make with this. And then finally,
and again, in terms of the color, you know, we decided to go with this color as it's specifically meant to be a color that evokes the kind of the color of a copper patina. There's a number of references of, you know, that kind of blue-green color from a historic context on the, you know, the Tower of St. Ignatius, the tower at the West Side Market, and a number of other buildings. But we really feel like it's a timeless color that also feels modern and also, you know, feels welcoming and colorful. And so we feel like it has kind of a nice mix of sort of a nod to a historic material, but also something that feels fresh.
Next slide here. So yeah, what we wanted to quickly show here is just the sensibility of the inside of the building is going to really be taking cues from this Art Deco lineage of the old garage and trying to create this connection between those historic Art Deco details and having that become a driver of the inside. So this just starts to give a sense of the spirit of the place that we're trying to make on the inside. Yeah. So again, we're really excited to just really to do something that acknowledges the history and builds from that to make something that is place specific and an icon for the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with feedback from the local design review committee.
Madam Chair, I think Nate Lowe had to leave the meeting, but he left me with the recommendation from the Ohio City Design Review Committee. This was reviewed on May 5th. They took no action on the new construction that was reviewed conceptually. They did approve the demolition contingent upon studying the reuse of material or replacing sandstone in kind and more attention to the detailing of the triglyphs. I have extensive notes that he also provided me. I can read those if you'd like to hear them, or I can forward those to the commission separately.
Not knowing what they're about, is there any highlights that you'd like to call forward so that we're aware of? Or do you think it's better if we read the whole thing?
I'll go through the whole thing very quickly. I think the commission should hear all of this. On the demo, the comments were the potential to reuse material. Applicants stated there's not enough salvageable material to use on the exterior. Sandstone could be replaced in kind for the new structure. On the new construction, the conceptual review, the board appreciates the updated plan and utilized public space. Also, the simplified palette of aluminum wall panels and clear spandrel glass and architectural cast stone. Chris Lesser stated the project feels more contextual and provides a nod to the historic structure. Additionally, the juxtaposition of clean and modern front to historic rear could be capitalized by using some aesthetic on the front entryway pavilion. Architect for the project, Ian Kenny, stated that the material palette will flow, but details on the front may be cleaner and more modern. They asked them to study existing triglyphs on the ticket booth or the to be demolished engineers building to match the new structure, or to match in the new structure. Parking garage comments, proposing a metal mesh with greenery on the facade, concerns over how these age and look in colder months, textured screen or painted screening is possible. No more mural in the new proposal. Those were the comments and the discussion from design review. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just to clarify, we're doing a conceptual review, so we're not taking action or a vote on this either, correct?
Madam Chair, this is on the agenda for concept plan for both elements. Our approvals from the last time have expired. We also felt that the design of the project has changed considerably. I guess it would be up to the commission if you feel comfortable acting on the demo part of this. We need a motion to change the status on the agenda today, but that would be a decision to be made by the commission. But I think the applicants are looking for some action on the demo at this time.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Then we will open up the floor for the commission's questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Mr. Brancatelli?
Thank you, and I would concur on taking specific action to move forward on the demolition, and then take the next step on kind of the concept. This is a wonderful project, and the density fits well within the district and the direction it's going, and really do like really kind of, as was stated, paying homage to the entryway and the Superior Viaduct, and that ticket booth really preserves kind of that intersection historically. So really appreciate the work that they did in both making the changes from the previous to where they're at today. So thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Bernazzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, for the applicant, how are you guys doing the HVAC for the individual units? Are you doing exterior like VTEC units, or are you guys doing an internal system?
It is a VTAC system, so we would have louvers incorporated into those solid panels.
Okay, and then that was something I started like reading the plans, and I was like, I have a feeling that'd just be something that we probably like in the next phase want to look at, you know, the detailing on those louvers, because that is something that can really make or break, you know, the facade. Because right now you're showing this very clean elevation, and I think that could, and there's also ways that it could not, but I think there are, you know, can always the slippery slope in that direction. That was my one concern, one thing I just wanted to note. And then the other thing I wanted to look at was your hotel lobby. I always see this a lot where people talk about site access between, you know, these kind of corridors that cut through the building. Is there an intention to have the hotel lobby open, like publicly, you know, say the hours of like 8 a.m. till late, so that way people can pass through? What is the intention there from a security standpoint? Because we had a similar condition when with the Sherwin-Williams project, with people with the, you know, it's the perception like, oh, it's going to be a connection through, but then surprise, it's actually locked all the time. Do you know what the clients, or the not the clients, that's the wrong word for myself, do you know what the intention there for that lobby would be?
Yeah, I can speak to that. It will be open and publicly accessible to the public. I think I'm not exactly sure about the condition of the Sherwin-Williams site, but because this is a hotel lobby that also includes a cafe and coffee services that are open to the public, as well as this is the access point for the publicly open restaurant on the 11th floor, as well as obviously for hotel guests coming in and out. This will be a staffed lobby, which will be open to the public, which will 100% need to be open to the public because of all of those public amenities and services that will be accessed from inside.
Well, that is promising, because, you know, it's one thing to always say like, oh, there's a cafe. Oh, my headphones are dying. It's one thing to say that there's going to be a lobby, but that's comforting to hear, because, you know, a lot of these like ground conditions always work when you draw them in plan, but then the follow through is kind of the very crucial part of that. But besides those two, like, you know, those are detail notes down the road, I think it's a really elegant way of addressing the site. I also think it's a really elegant solution. I actually had not noticed through the presentation. I should know because I work on the street. I walk past this to get lunch every day. That you guys are basically recreating the building just stepped farther back. And I think, you know, you're in a wonderful position where you could actually like really carefully analyze and take measurements off of the existing building and the details before you demolish it. If demolition is approved, but let's just be hypothetical, that then you could use those measurements and those kind of details to then re-emulate what you're recreating, and it would be like a super hyper accurate reconstruction. Because it's always the downfalls. People have the intention of being like really accurate, and then it sometimes doesn't follow through. I think you guys are in a prime position to make a really beautiful kind of stepped farther back reconstruction of that sandstone part. But I really am in full support of the project. I like the simplicity of the massing. I think your openness to the public on the ground condition is something really promising and something, it's a really good precedent that the city needs, right? That you can also give back to the community on the ground level, that you don't just have to think about the building. You have to think about the building and the people that it's going to be around. So I'm very excited to see this keep moving forward. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Mr. Benazzi.
Oh,
Giancarlo?
I did not realize this whole time my video wasn't on. You just heard an ambivalent voice.
We've seen you a few times today, so I
Oh,
think it's okay.
thank you.
Giancarlo?
Yes. I'd like to actually start at the bottom of the building where it interacts the most with what's going on around it. A couple of points of clarification. One is, for example, I think the buildings that are there now are actually limestone, not sandstone. The sandstone is the San Malachy and everything in the bridge. But I think the county buildings and that the historical portions are limestone. But, you know, one of the intriguing things, because I lived on the Viaduct when I first came to Cleveland, and so I know the area quite well. So one of the most intriguing things to me has always been under the bridge. There's a whole world under this magnificent bridge that has never really been touched. What used to be the Stouffer building had access to it. So there's no interplay at the ground level, the public space, let's call it, between this new building and the bridge itself, or the area under the bridge itself, right?
I'm happy to respond to that if it's appropriate right now. So on the limestone comment, we have Brett Klinger from Turner here who could speak to that. We did have a historic consultant come out and look at this, and it is sandstone. We also had another historic preservation expert weigh in that she thought that it might actually be architectural concrete with a, you know, some kind of treatment on top. But according to the sort of like our official historic consultant guidance, it's sandstone. I'll let Steve weigh in on that in a second, but just to address the second point around the lower level of the bridge, that's kind of what I was referencing earlier in the presentation. This site, I don't know if you want to go back to the site plan, but one of the reasons why we were so interested in this site is because this site includes within it, yeah, right there. Actually, if you go to the next slide, you can see this, it's a long, thin site. And then if you go forward to, yeah, exactly, right there, on the eastern end of this site is the only kind of wheelchair accessible ground floor entrance into the lower level of this bridge on the Ohio City side. And it's usually where people enter the site for any public events that have happened, like the Squid Soup event that Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative organized a couple of years ago, which actually had 14,000 people come over a single weekend, even with waivers and stuff.
The former Snowford building.
I'm referring to this garage entrance right here. There's also an entrance in what is now the Sauce the City Market across Caddy Corner, but that entrance has not been used in many years to get down here. Yeah, so this entrance where the red arrow is really kind of the prime entrance into this space. There have been a number of different initiatives studying what it would look like to reopen this space, which is why we have really tried to make sure, even with a very tight site, that we can provide kind of a civic scale entrance into this site, because we believe that at some point in the future, that lower level will become a public space.
So what is the middle green space? Is that referring to that bridge, to the underground of the bridge?
The green.
The second one down, the middle photograph.
Oh, that is the lower level of the bridge. Yeah, that's, I believe, during the light installation that I mentioned. Yeah, so all of those reference images that we showed in one of the earlier slides in the presentation were of the lower level of the Detroit Superior Bridge.
Okay.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that the ticket booth also has stair access to that under bridge. That's one of the reasons why we're very keen in preserving that. Is there's stairs down from the ticket booth in 1939 to that lower bridge. So yeah.
Okay, so the ticket booth, how will that be restructured and used?
We're still working through that. We will definitely be restoring the windows and restoring the stonework just to bring it up to a kind of a higher level. Right now it is slightly deteriorated. Because it doesn't really make sense to provide access down to the lower level of the bridge right now, because it's not actually a public space. I think we will probably end up putting a temporary floor over the stairs, but in a way that then those could be removed in the future if access to that lower level to the public is something that happens, and that would have to be a project working with ODOT and the city and the county.
I'm going to keep several this kind of technical questions before I consider some aesthetical. You know, going back to the that public space, you know, on the ground floor next to the bridge. If we can go back to that photograph, to the rendering. Keep going, right there, yeah. So one of the, probably the most intriguing memories I have of living in that space is the incredible noise from that bridge. So that, I know you mentioned how we can connect to the bridge, which I think is a great idea, but on the other hand, we do have a very, very serious noise factor. Have you considered that at all? As far as like an outdoor cafe, which will be probably dominated by the traffic and the traffic noises from that bridge.
I mean, I think it's something that we'll keep in mind. I don't know that the sound, to my mind, is more than any outdoor cafe along West 25th Street or other busy streets in the urban core. I don't know, Steve, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I think at this section, you know, the bridge is pretty much solid concrete. And once you're going over the, you know, the span of the bridge, you get, you know, more noise from the, you know, actual bridge structure. But yeah, I think this is more like you said, it'd be like typical, you know, road noise, you know, from the traffic, not necessarily from the structure.
Have you actually stood there, Stephen, and listened to the bridge ever?
Yeah, we've been on site several times.
Many times.
Okay.
I live 2 blocks from the site. I go there.
Are you able to conduct a normal conversation?
Yeah, and I mean, even in the, you know, we've been in the underbridge, you know, even surprisingly, the underbridge.
You know, you can... very quiet, but speaking of the underbridge, I have one more question. How, I mean, I remember going there a number of years ago, and it was seriously damaged, you know, like this, you could actually see the river below in some, I mean, have you walked through that underneath the bridge, and is that like?
Yeah, I mean, our whole team has walked on it, and there are portions where there's metal grating on the ground floor. I think clearly, if it was opened up to the public, it would need to become a solid ground plane. It's not within our purview. We don't own that land, so it's only something that we can advocate for as, you know, adjacent land and building owners and citizens.
No, it's just, to me, it's an architectural masterpiece, and it was used at one time. And it would be such a great addition to this project and to the city. So it's something to definitely to consider. But
we are 100% on the same page, and it's like, as I'm just to reiterate, it's one of the reasons why we purchased this site, because we were worried that if somebody purchased this land who did not care about the access to the bridge, they could easily have designed a building that would block in that entrance and make it much more difficult to access that space ever.
okay, just for a couple more minutes, staying at this lower level, which the reason I'm so intrigued by the lower level, because this is the area really that is a welcoming environment, you know, for people coming into the building. And it's a public space to a certain degree, even though it's a private space. But so what's going on with that lower floor? Is that the main lobby for the future hotel, or?
What you're seeing there is a cafe space. Where that kind of flower is on the side of that's the entrance to the lobby, and then in the foreground behind the storefront, that is the cafe space. But the intent is that it feels welcoming to all, that it becomes part of just the public realm in general.
Okay.
Maybe we
I
can go
think an
back to the
important
floor
thing
plan.
to note too is the actual lobby is a hybrid cafe and check-in. So the flag that we are working with that we can't disclose at this point, it is a self-performing cafe. So we're not theorizing that it could become a cafe at some point, but it is actually part of the operational plan for the hotel hospitality company.
Okay.
Could you go back to the slide with the floor plan on? I think that shows it the most clearly. There's one that goes in a little bit more in detail.
That's after these renderings. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how the lobby kind of flows into the cafe. The idea is that the cafe, as Graham mentioned, would kind of feel like one space with the rest of the lobby.
Thank you. And then going back to that public space again. I have a few more questions. Yeah. So is there a plan to, I know it was briefly mentioned, to reuse some of the existing stone that will be demolished?
So right now, Giancarlo, what we would like to do is there's definitely not enough salvageable stone to use in our proposed design. So to make everything, you know, cohesive and match, ideally we would like to use a cast stone product so that we can have more control over the, you know, the color and texture of the new material.
So this lower floor, this first floor, what we're looking at right now, it will be cast stone, cementitious material, not natural stone such as limestone.
Right. Well, yeah, that's currently what we're proposing. The Ohio City Design Review asked us to, you know, research that a bit. So as Marika said, even though we're, you know, pretty sure it's, you know, a natural stone material, we do have a masonry consultant that's going to give us a final determination on what the existing material is. So, you know, we have all the information to move forward.
You have a concrete consultant? Is that what you're calling a masonry consultant?
Well, we were talking to someone from the Institute of Masonry.
Which is concrete.
But also other types of stonework.
Okay. I think that's it for now. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Other questions or comments from the commission?
I think one thing we didn't really mention in this presentation is just kind of the high level of current deterioration on the existing building, which was initially the impetus for us proposing this demolition. There's quite a bit of spalling and very visible deterioration, cracked stones throughout the building. There was also a vehicle that crashed into the front of the building and further damaged the front facade. So this building is in pretty bad shape, I think, is the highlight of that. And hence why the issue with the salvaging existing stonework is really more just because of the state of the stone on the current building.
And we did provide a report documenting the condition of the existing stone. I know that was in the submission to Ohio City Design Review. I'm not sure if that got transferred on to this commission, but we can provide that.
That was shared with the commission. It's also at the end of this presentation if you feel the need to go through it.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's probably something we can do offline to keep us moving along. Ms. Anderson, you had comments?
Yes, I thank you. I did review the report regarding the condition of the existing building, and it's unfortunate that it is in such bad shape, but I did see in the photos the spalling stone and the compromised stones, so I can understand the need to demolish the building. I think in exchange for that demolition, I'd like to see something here that would be more in line with the Secretary of Interior standards regarding materiality and scale. I would not want to see a reproduction of the Campbell block that was there, but I think that could maybe more inform the scale and the exterior of the building. I know Panzica did a very nice building on the southeast corner of West 28th and Detroit nearby, and I would like to see something that was more consistent with that, because I feel that would be much more consistent with the historic character of the neighborhood. I do not see it consistent at all. I think it's just too large, and the materials are not do not lend themselves to the historic character. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Are we still talking about the new building, right, Michelle?
I'm talking about the new building, yes.
So I'm going to insert my comments now. I mean, I think this is a very intriguing project. I think I mentioned last time, I love it from a urban planning standpoint. I think everything you're trying to do here is excellent. The respect of the church and trying to reinstate some of the lines of the historic area. My holdup of this is that I do still feel it's too tall. I appreciate that you brought it down, and I know you have a pro forma you have to meet, but I personally feel the structure is still too tall for this site. If it was on the other side of the bridge, I would love it because it would fit in with the context there. But that is my main comment, is that, like I said, I love from an urban planning and everything you're trying to do here, but that's my personal opinion. The one thing that we haven't heard much, or what we'd like to see more of when you come back for your final approval, is also information on how you intend to wrap the parking garage. It looks like from the renderings it might be a green mesh facade, but when you come back, I think we would like to see more details on that, so that we can understand the permeability into seeing that on in the near term, and on the off months of like winter and so forth.
Yeah, we can do that. That is the plan, is to have some kind of a metal mesh backing and then plant climbing plants. We can bring more detail on that.
That would be great. Just with our climate, we know how those look in the winter months versus summer. And I think your goal of trying to shield the parking is needed in that location based on how close it will be to the garage. I'm sorry, the garage will be to the bridge. Sorry, my medicine head is still not a little foggy. Other questions or comments from the commission?
I have a few more, if I may.
Go ahead.
So on the lower level, I would like to see some natural stone there as pavers and on the first floor. The sandstone obviously is not as readily available as it used to be, but limestone certainly is. And it's actually as economic as concrete. Especially when, you know, you're next to this amazing bridge, which is all stone and San Malachy, and the whole viaduct is, you know, the bridge itself, the viaduct is a major historical part of Cleveland. So, and then we talked about the height, and if we go now to the overall view of the building, I want to make one comment, if I may. Do we change keep going to the actual facade of the entire building? Keep going to the where the terracing system is showing. Yeah, that's a good one. So I think that if the terrace went all the way around, it would maybe soften the monolithic element of the building. Plus, it would have amazing views, not only facing the bridge, but you should be able to see the lake from there. So I think that would dramatically change the building, and it would make it softer perhaps, and maybe even diminish the height view that we have now. So I would really encourage you to take a look at that. But I agree with you. I agree with
Sounds like, John Carlo, are you saying to investigate kind of the the 11th floor facade?
But you see the terrace, there's like a garden element there, green space, and I assume that is facing south, right?
It's facing north. It's facing towards the lake.
It is facing towards the lake. Okay. So yeah, it would be nice to like cut the building in half and have a kind of an open space all around and soften it a little bit, because it is very, very monolithic. And it's surrounded by all these arches. The bridge is a series of arches. San Malachy is a series of arches and towers. And I think that would be so incredible. I mean, we have to keep thinking in terms of we're building a brand new building, but we're also creating a future landmark. And we will not have another chance to do that once the building is constructed. So this is an opportunity really, without really major changes, to soften it a little bit and make it more open to the views that we have, these fantastic views that we have of the industrial part of Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, the lake. And you know, I'm somewhat disappointed by the building that was built, the new apartment building that was built directly across the street from here, because again, it's just a monolithic structure that has no breathing, no lightness, that's so essential when we're surrounded by water and rivers, I think.
Yeah, I think that the reasoning behind having the 11th floor deck open up to the north is specifically so that you're looking directly at views of the lake as well as at downtown. We did put in this this kind of tapered space right at the left-hand side of the building there to try to have a subtle differentiation between the two blocks of the building.
No, I think it's brilliant. I think I think more would be better.
Okay.
In this case, that's what I'm considering. And then the other issue I have, one final point, and then we can move on, please, is any consideration for art and creative pieces rather than just strictly architectural pieces. And I hate to use the word public art, but I'm referring to just art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we are huge proponents of public art and have organized and put up probably 13 murals, large-scale murals around the neighborhood. So we're very committed to public art. We are showing, one mural right now along the entrance where that flower is. On the earlier version of this design, we did have kind of a printed vinyl mesh wrapping the entire garage with a large scale art piece. We are changing that, frankly, because the product that we used on the Church and State project has not held up with the weather at all and has been frustrating for us. So we want to go in a different direction, but we're very committed to public art, and so there will definitely be spaces for murals and other types of public art within this site.
That's my major issue with murals, because they're extremely temporary and not really meant to survive time. So, but thank you. That's all the comments I have at this point.
All right, excellent. Well, I would apologize. I have to exit the meeting, so I have a conflict with another meeting right now. But Giancarlo is vice chair. If you could continue the conversation. I think your Mr. Bonezzi has some additional feedback, and then it would probably go to a decision if you're going to make a vote on the demolition of the two structures at this time. So
Okay.
Giancarlo, could you please complete the meeting?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Bonassi, are you ready for your comments?
Yeah, and it was just if we could go to the floor plan. I know, and this was just we'll get down there. Creative solution. I'm just thinking, the one with the site plan. I mean, sorry. This is fine. So I know that I've been hearing comments about the height, and you take this comment or leave it, which is that to the left of where that little retail and utility building is, there's substantial setback, but this commission does have the purview at times to change things. So I'm just thinking out of the box here, which is that if you were to say, move that retail and utility building closer to the street, could you expand your building by one bay to the west and possibly eliminate one more floor, but still meet your pro forma of the number of rooms that you guys need to meet? Just something that a quick study to see if those numbers would work out for you. But that would be a way to even, to get one floor down. Just thought of that as a suggestion. I just wanted to provide before we left the meeting.
I can quickly respond to that. I think one of the things that we're really excited to do here is to make a meaningful open space, frankly, and create a site that feels kind of porous from all directions. We certainly are mindful of not putting up too much mass that creates almost kind of a wall if we're kind of approaching from the north. At the same time, also creating views to Mount Cairo. So I think we've looked at that, and I think we certainly we want to give enough space to have a presence for the 1939 ticket booth and for this building as a whole to just be able to make a there, to make a site that feels worthy of this moment, that actually also, again, creates more, you have more sight lines, more ability to see the bridge and the historic pieces that we're trying to celebrate here. So
no, and I completely agree. From a personal standpoint, I love things tall. Probably because I'm so short, I like tall things. But just also considering my fellow members and their considerations and thoughts, I just wanted to put forward that
understood
idea and thought. So, thank you.
No, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission members?
Yes, Giancarlo. I as well am going to be needing to exit the meeting. I'm up against at 12:30 as well. However, if we are taking a vote today, I just want to let the commission know that I would be recusing myself. My colleague is working with the applicant here, so I'd be recusing myself from any vote that we do take.
Speaking of that, LDA is currently doing some work for me. Do I need to recluse myself from that perspective, or is that okay? Donald?
We probably should look at, make sure we have quorum too.
Yeah, my
think.
I was just going to say, my colleague Mara Cush was working with the applicant, so I have a specific conflict, so I'll be recusing myself from any future vote.
Okay, well, we still have a forum, Donald?
We lost the quorum when Julie left.
Okay.
We only have 4 members, so it appears we can't act on the demo today.
Okay. Speaking of that, we're looking at the demo as a totally different from the actual building, right? The new building. Shouldn't we be looking at those things together or not?
We're looking conceptually at both elements of the project. So the new construction as well as the demolition of the historic buildings.
Okay, so which we cannot do any longer because we don't have a forum.
Yes, but I think we should still give the applicant some direction on the demolition.
Okay.
That would be appropriate.
Who is Jonathan Evans? What is this role? The gentleman that was just talking a few seconds ago. This gentleman.
Design architect.
Yeah, I'm principal with Mass Design Group, one of the architecture team on this project.
With LDA or separate entity?
Separate entity, Mass Design Group. Our firm is working with LDA on this.
Thanks very much. All right, well, then we can vote on the new building. We could talk about the demolition, so I agree with you, so they can have some direction as far as our positions are. So I open the floor to comments regarding the demolition.
Mr. Chair, this is Carl. I think since we can't take action on either, I think it would be appropriate that our standard demolition would be some documentation of the building, a salvage plan, and before it be taken down. If they can identify items for reuse, that should be done. That's a fairly standard ask of anybody doing a demolition, whether it's photo documentation. There are, I believe, some blueprints available, but they may not be, but that's just standard, and then that can be submitted to us as part of a demolition plan.
So did you find the original drawings, Carl?
No.
They're not available or non-existent?
Yeah,
go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so we have blueprints from when they did the 1971 edition. So it shows the entire building, but it was, specifically for when they did the addition.
Okay.
And we also have, obviously, as part of our work, we've, documented everything through photos and drawings as well.
All right. Do you have a report on the status of the buildings that are to be demolished? I assume you got an engineering report showing how terrible they are.
That's what we have attached to the presentation, correct?
Okay, and then who identified as being sad? Because I still think it's limestone, but that's not a big deal, I guess. It's going to be demolished. But who was the person identified as sandstone?
Yeah, and I have to look up the actual name, but we had someone from the Institute of Masonry that looked at it. But obviously, yeah, we're open to getting additional feedback. So
yeah, I just want to caution you that the Institute of Masonry is all about concrete and cement. Right. It's not about natural stone. Yeah, so that's, so all the old buildings, we're preserving that low structure, the picket booth. And
correct.
And everything else is coming down. And then what are you guys doing with the stone then? Dumping it somewhere?
So any salvageable stone, we are still going to try to incorporate elsewhere in the project, potentially in, landscape design, or anything else we could come up with.
Okay. All right, then at this point, there's not much we could do then. Right?
Well, what would be the process then for this? Is there any is there any way that this could be taken as an administrative vote? So, or do we then need to come back again? I know that we need to come back for final approval anyway, but in terms of a conceptual vote.
Marika, I don't think we can approve a demo administratively in this case.
Because
we could bring it back as a separate agenda item at a future meeting, and we'd have to figure out when our agendas are available coming up. It might not be till the June meeting, but we could do that at least. Can you give me a better sense of why you need the action on the demo at this time?
It's difficult to move forward with any further design development without knowing whether we have approval on this or not.
What?
I think we can schedule it on a separate agenda.
It doesn't matter, really. I was just curious. It doesn't matter as far as whether the stone is limestone or because it's being demolished. I was just curious from an aesthetic point of view, I guess, a personal point of view. So it doesn't really matter, but we can't take a vote because we don't have a quorum. Correct? Or can we?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
I think based on what I've heard from the commission, there seems to be the 1971 portion was previously approved for demolition. So I have a feeling that that would be renewed without an issue. Based upon the report and the comments that I've heard, I don't think that the commission would, and I'm trying not to put words in people's mouths, but I don't think that there would be too much of an opposition to the demolition so long as the items that were requested be submitted.
Why is there the agenda today then?
Because everything has to be looked at as an entire thing conceptually before it can be approved.
Yeah, Carl, I got those sentiments as well. So, yeah, I know that we don't have that formal approval, but yeah, I think we can huddle on the design front. And, you know, I don't think we'll be held up. But yeah, is there any way to do an email vote for this commission, or it's got to
No.
be in? Okay.
It's got to be done publicly. It cannot be done
Okay.
with the sunshine laws and such. So,
got it. I got it. All right.
And just as so you know, we're looking probably the earliest we could put you on here is June 9th. So that might give you enough time to actually get through more design. And maybe you're coming back with, in that way you can plan on going to Ohio City first, and maybe June 9th can maybe be here for final for everything. Just to put that as a timeline.
Where is the demolition right now as far as the scheduling is concerned? Is it something urgent or is something that still is a way off?
No, it's all part of the process. You know, as we're working to finalize the loan packages, and you know, you have to get through entitlements. So, you know, it's a chicken and egg conundrum. But I think what Mariko is referencing is, yeah, we want to make sure that there's a understanding, and I know it's not a formal one because of the lack of quorum, but you know, we feel like we've gotten guidance from this commission to proceed in the general direction that we're already headed, and that we have a lot of valid questions on clarity that we'll be able to provide at the next meeting. But there wasn't any strong objection to the addition of the garage in demo. We know it's not formalized, and so as ownership, we take that risk as we continue to pay engineers and architects. But it's one where I feel like we got a lot of verbal direction from this meeting.
Well, just so you know, for me, it's important that what replaces the demolition is, to me, significant. I mean, it's obvious that without the demolition, the whole project would not be able to proceed, go forward. So that's something that will have to be considered and approved, but we can't approve it today apparently because we don't have quorum.
Right.
So we have to reschedule it. So I'm wondering, like, how quickly can we reschedule it if it's significantly impact your construction schedule?
I think it's more just the design process as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Don or Carl, is it possible to kind of document some of these notes so that they can be brought up the next time, just so that I'm assuming we wouldn't need to go through this entire presentation again at another meeting, that this could just be kind of skipping to the part where there's like any additional discussion and a vote. Is that accurate, or?
I think that's accurate. Donald, what do you think?
Well,
No, go ahead, Tom.
we will get you a record of the meeting discussion today. We'll also send you the tape so that you're aware of all of that. I mean, we don't have to see everything. If we're just talking about the demolition, we don't need to see everything all over again, but you know, I think there's still, we still need to finalize the approval of the new construction too. And but if you can come back and just address the outstanding issues that were raised today, I think that would shorten our meeting time next time, and also get you a quicker answer on some of these other issues. If that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I think we made a lot of progress. Anything else on the agenda?
Before we do that, Mr. Chair, do the applicants feel they've gotten enough feedback through this process to make their next steps?
Good question.
We do. We feel like we've got some homework to do before our next meeting, and yeah, I think everybody was able to weigh in and provide some comments that we can react to in a very thoughtful way for the next meeting.
Okay. So then I call the meeting adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to add one item, and I will send an email to the entire commission. Please hold June 3rd open. We will have to have a special meeting of the commission with the City Planning Commission regarding the Sherwin-Williams headquarters. I still have to confirm that, but at this point, just leave the date open, and we'll get back to you. But June 3rd is when the plan is to take final action on the Sherwin-Williams headquarters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have today.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, small group left.